Chapter 36:11. In this heated discussion that swept the entire Fortune God dynasty, Yi Shiwen was obviously at a complete disadvantage. In the eyes of many people, Yi Shiwen's disadvantage was very obvious when comparing the two. In this showdown that ultimately depended on strength to determine the outcome, Yi Shiwen's biggest weakness was that he had only achieved the Tao for 10,000 years. No one doubted whether Yi Shiwen's future was bright, but most people felt that this was not his era. Space-time Heavenly Master was too dazzling, and he could not be compared to him now. Most people also believed that when Yi Shiwen fully grew up in the future, he should be able to compete with Space-time Heavenly Master. But in any case, that was not now. It was still too early for Yi Shiwen. He had made such a shocking contribution. It could be said that no one would be able to block Yi Shiwen's radiance in the future. However, it was still too early for him to think about it now. But some people felt that Yi Shiwen had a chance of winning. It should be known that even without using that mysterious method, he had beheaded top masters of the 6th and 7th realms. With such strength, it was not impossible to say that he had no chance of winning. It was indeed possible to compete with Space-time Heavenly Master. It was just that now, Yi Shiwen's strength seemed to have been figured out, but Space-time Heavenly Master had not. His strength was still mysterious. Although he had fought many times over the years, it seemed that no one had forced him to use his full strength. Many people knew that Space-time Heavenly Master was very strong, but it was still unknown to how strong he was. Overall, it seemed that Space-time Heavenly Master was more powerful. But in any case, Yi Shiwen was not a soft persimmon. The battle between the two was bound to be extremely fierce. Even the most confident people found it difficult to say with certainty who would win and who would lose because the level of the two was too far apart from them. It was like an ant meeting a giant. Whether this giant was 40 meters or 50 meters, it was an unparalleled existence for them. There were differences between giants, but it was just a matter of a thought for them to crush them. As time passed, all kinds of rumors became more and more intense. Almost all eyes in the world were attracted to the battle between the two. Everyone wanted to know who would emerge victorious in the end, because it had been a long time since the Fortune Divine Dynasty had enjoyed such prosperity. The last time someone had ascended was when the West Heavenly Venerate had become the West Heavenly Venerate. However, that had been at least 10 million years ago. For ordinary people, tens of millions of years was too long. If they missed this grand event, they might miss it for the rest of their lives. Just as this matter was getting more and more intense, the Fortune Divine Dynasty finally made a move. However, they did not intervene, but sent out invitations to the world. This was the promotion ceremony for the Eastern Heavenly Venerate, one of the 5 Heavenly Venerates of the Fortune God Dynasty. After the battle between Yi Shiwen and Shi Kong Heavenly Venerate, the winner would be promoted to Eastern Heavenly Venerate on the spot. Therefore, this was also a grand ceremony to observe the ceremony. All the Fortune Divine Dynasty's emperors had received such an invitation to attend the ceremony. Needless to say, those Heavenly Venerables also received such an invitation. However, the quasi-emperors below the God Emperor realm wouldn't even have the chance to watch the ceremony. That was too far away for them. Even if they were willing to come, they could only do so outside the Eastern Celestial Palace. This was the clear-cut and cruel reality. Although an emperor was not a Heavenly Venerate, he was still a high and mighty ruler of the Fortune Divine Dynasty. He was also an extreme powerhouse. The difference in status and strength between a quasi-emperor and an emperor was like the difference between heaven and earth. The Fortune Divine Dynasty's action was akin to pouring boiling oil on this already heated matter, causing it to boil even more. More and more people joined in the discussion of this matter. Especially after the invitation was sent, it alarmed many veteran Heavenly Venerables and Emperors who were in deep closed-door cultivation. These Heavenly Venerables and Emperors did not come out of closed-door cultivation even when they were facing the invasion of foreign domains. For extreme powerhouses like Emperors and Heavenly Venerables, closed-door cultivation was a very common thing. For them, if they wanted to advance further in their cultivation, unless they pinned their hopes on a fortuitous encounter, they could only slowly grind their way to a breakthrough. Therefore, it was normal for them to go into closed-door cultivation for hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years. Moreover, the situation of the entire Fortune Divine dynasty usually did not change too much compared to before they left. The situation of the Fortune Divine dynasty would not change much for hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years. This was also the norm, so they did not feel that they had been abandoned by the times. But this time, after they came out of closed-door cultivation, they discovered that the world had undergone tremendous changes. The epic battlefield Moon City had been breached, the foreign domains had invaded, the East Heavenly Venerate had successfully advanced to become a Middle Heavenly Venerate, and the selection of a new East Heavenly Venerate had begun. This series of events nearly stunned them. The times really changed too quickly, and they simply did not have the time to react. In this series of events, any one of them would have been a huge matter, but now all of them had happened. For a moment, they actually did not know which matter they should be concerned about first. They felt that they needed to pay attention to every matter in a timely manner, especially the invasion of foreign domains, which had destroyed the territories of many tribes and sections. Many veteran heavenly venerables and emperors had already put down their pride and personally participated in the battle. The fiery atmosphere even prompted battles between emperors and heavenly venerates. This was a common occurrence. Originally, experts of this level would not easily take action, but now, emperors and heavenly venerates could be seen fighting for territory at any time. Besides finding a way to resolve this matter, the most important matter was naturally the East Heavenly Venerate selection and the subsequent viewing ceremony. They could not attend the promotion ceremonies of other Heavenly Venerates because they could not manage them. However, the East Heavenly Venerate was different. He was the ruler of the entire Eastern region. Although he only managed the Eastern region, he had a lot of say in the affairs of the entire Fortune Divine dynasty. He was one of the people that could not be offended. If they did not attend, not only would they offend the East Heavenly Venerate, but they would also lose face for the Fortune Divine dynasty. All kinds of rumors quickly spread to the human race's Mount Bujo. As the human race's sacred mountain, most of the human race's emperors, and elites were gathered here. It was a holy land in the hearts of the human race. Now that Yi Shiwen wanted to compete for the position of East Heavenly Venerate, how could they not support him? It could be said that among Yi Shiwen's supporters, the human race was the most hardcore. The entire human race was working hard to build up momentum for Yi Shiwen. Several human races' sovereign emperors had also received invitations from the Fortune Divine dynasty. They were also qualified to attend the ceremony. However, as one of the parties involved, Yi Shiwen could bring more people with him. He was not like the others who could not enter unless they were emperors. If Yi Shiwen was promoted to East Heavenly Venerate, it was inevitable that the human race would enter the East Heavenly Venerate mansion. That was the core, territory of the East Heavenly Venerate. It could not be handed over to outsiders. Even if he had a close relationship with the Middle Heavenly Venerate, he would not leave such a trace. After Yi Shiwen's promotion was successful, the Middle Heavenly Venerate's confidence in the East Heavenly Venerate mansion would be transferred away, leaving only the peripheral forces. The core forces would be filled by Yi Shiwen's supporters from the human race and the 11 prefectures. These people were also Yi Shiwen's most fanatical supporters. They firmly believed that Yi Shiwen would win, so they had already begun to prepare to enter the East Heavenly Venerate mansion. The entire Bujo Mountain was shrouded in a fanatical atmosphere. No one thought that Yi Shiwen would fail because Yi Shiwen had created too many miracles. In the hearts of these fanatical supporters, there was no possibility of Yi Shiwen failing. He was synonymous with success and miracles. How could he fail? Sun Diandian walked in the divine court and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. If she hadn't been in Mount Bujo, she would have never imagined that Yi Shiwen had such a lofty reputation and status in Mount Bujo among the human race. In the blink of an eye, she had been in Bujo Mountain for several years. Because her father was Yi Shiwen's disciple, she also received preferential treatment. Although she was different from a direct disciple like Bian Xiaoye, it should be known that in the fortune realm, Bian Xiaoye was the only known disciple of Yi Shiwen. Although Sun Zhuang's status was not as high as Bian Xiaoye's, she was already considered a core young master in the human race. Naturally, as Sun Zhuang's daughter and Wu Zun's grand disciple, Sun Diandian's appearance was also sought after by everyone in the divine court. This was especially true for those self-proclaimed elite geniuses of the younger generation. They wanted to pursue Sun Diandian even more. If that happened, it would be the same as marrying a revered martial artist. If they could receive pointers from him, it would be extremely beneficial. Suddenly, her vision blurred, and a delicate figure appeared in front of her. Who else could it be but Bian Xiaoye? Disciple Sun Diandian greets martial aunt. Sun Diandian said hurriedly, "Martial aunt, you were looking for me?" Sun Diandian didn't feel much restraint when she saw that it was Bian Xiaoye. Usually, Bian Xiaoye couldn't find many friends because of her status and strength. On the contrary, Sun Diandian, who was a junior, was very likable. It was as if she had seen herself when she had just ascended Buzhou Mountain. Therefore, Sun Diandian wasn't so restrained in front of her. "I'll give you a great opportunity. Let's go. The Eastern Heavenly Venerate selection is about to begin. Come with me. Let's go and see how your martial ancestor will seize the position of Eastern Heavenly Venerate." Bian Xiaoye said, "Martial aunt is the best. Even my father doesn't want to bring me along." Sun Diandian said with a smile. Bian Xiaoye shook her head and laughed. With a wave of her hand, she disappeared into the horizon with Sun Diandian. Chapter 36:12. 10 years later, the Eastern Heavenly Venerate selection finally began. During these 10 years, all kinds of news about the Eastern Heavenly Venerate selection had spread like wildfire. Everyone had their own supporters in their hearts, and they were all different from each other. Yi Shiwen had fallen into a disadvantageous position. But in any case, this was just everyone's guess. No one knew who would win between the two. In the sky, thousands of miles of purple clouds swept across the sky. All kinds of strange phenomena appeared. Celestial music played, and golden lotuses fell from the sky. This might have been a rare sight for many years, but now it could be seen every once in a while in the eastern region. Everyone knew why this was happening. The various emperors and heavenly venerates were rushing to the Eastern Heavenly Venerate residence to watch the ceremony. This was a grand event. Unfortunately, most people were not qualified to watch the ceremony and could only wait for the final result. The matter that had been discussed for 10 years was finally coming to an end. At this time, the Eastern Heavenly Venerate residence was decorated with lanterns and colorful banners. There were even emperors who came out to greet the guests. The first to arrive were the various emperors. Although they were usually influential figures everywhere, they were nothing in the Eastern Heavenly Venerate residence at this time. They could only arrive first. When the emperors arrived, Heavenly Venerates appeared one after another. Needless to say, they were arranged according to strength, status, and so on. Around the Eastern Heavenly Venerate residence, famous divine kings and quasi-emperors watched from afar as if it was another grand event. They watched as figures came from afar and entered the Eastern Heavenly Venerate residence. Each and every one of them was famous and had countless military achievements. They had been famous for hundreds of thousands or even millions of years. Usually they lived in seclusion and it was difficult to see them. Now, all of them had appeared here, especially the Heavenly Venerates. Divine kings and quasi-emperors could not see them. Many of them were only legends. There were even some Heavenly Venerates who were so old that these quasi-emperors and divine kings had never heard of them. Only some particularly old and experienced quasi-emperors had vaguely seen them in ancient books, but they were only heard of in legends. However, even these illustrious figures were merely supporting characters to revered martial artist Yi Shiwen and space-time Heavenly Master at this time. They only served to make them more powerful and terrifying. Just when they saw that the number of celestial masters that appeared was getting fewer and fewer, it was almost coming to an end, two groups of people appeared in everyone's line of sight. They arrived almost at the same time. It was Yi Shiwen and Space-Time Celestial Master. They came with their respective deployments. Both sides had huge lineups, bringing many deployments. Among the many Empyreans, only they could bring so many people. Many quasi-emperor and god kings who were watching from afar seemed to be able to feel the sparks flying in the eyes of these two people. The space-time Heavenly Master and Wu Zun had never fought against each other. However, the rumor that they didn't get along with each other had been circulating for many years. It was just that the space-time Heavenly Master used to be aloof back then, and Yi Shiwen was just a newcomer in the Heavenly Master realm. Therefore, most people thought that the space-time Heavenly Master was one-sidedly dissatisfied with Wu Zun. However, time passed quickly. Now, when people mentioned the grudges between the two of them, they would no longer be biased towards one person. However, many people felt that even if the two of them didn't get along, they would still end up fighting over the position of the Eastern Heavenly Exalted. The two of them stopped at almost the same time and looked at each other from afar. This was the first time they met after returning to the Fortune God dynasty. It was different from the last time. Previously, in the epic battlefield, no matter how bad their relationship was, they were still comrades who fought side by side. However, this time, they were competitors competing for the position of the Eastern Heavenly Exalted. Finally, it had come to this point. The time to compete had finally arrived. Between the two of them, the space-time Heavenly Master was the most emotional. This was because he had always been confident in himself. No matter who his opponent was, he would always be the most dazzling and the most popular candidate. It was just that he hadn't expected that the few veteran Empyreans he was most afraid of would lose the qualifications to compete in the end. And the one who was truly standing in front of him was actually Yi Shiwen. When he started scheming for the position of the Eastern Heavenly Exalted, Yi Shiwen was just a junior. However, when he really fought for the final position, the person he was competing with was actually Yi Shiwen, who he had never really taken seriously. Just like what the outside world had said, the relationship between the two was indeed not harmonious. However, it was impossible to say that they would fight over this. Although he suspected that his disciple had been killed by Yi Shiwen, it was only a suspicion. There was no evidence. Moreover, at this point, it was really not worth it to start a war with Yi Shiwen over this matter. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen's expression was much calmer. Only he knew how much he had experienced step by step. This was the final battle. Victory meant that he had finally reached the peak of the Fortune God dynasty. I never thought that the person who would compete with me in the end would be you. The space-time Heavenly Master looked at Yi Shiwen and didn't hide the emotions in his heart. There was no need to hide it, because victory was already in his hands. However, the final winner will only be me, whether it's you or not. We will only know after we compete, Yi Shiwen said calmly, as if he wasn't moved by the words of the space-time Heavenly Master. After saying that, Yi Shiwen didn't care about the space-time Heavenly Master. Instead, he directly led the people of the 11 prefectures behind him into the Eastern Heavenly Venerate Mansion. The space-time Heavenly Master just sneered and immediately led his subordinates into the Eastern Heavenly Venerate Mansion. When Yi Shiwen entered the reception hall of the Eastern Heavenly Venerate Mansion, all the emperors and Heavenly Masters had already arrived. They sat down according to their respective positions. Above the Heavenly Masters, there were 2 empty seats on the left and right. These seats were specially reserved for the space-time Heavenly Master and Yi Shiwen. Above these 2 seats, there were 5 seats corresponding to the East, South, West, and Central Heavenly Masters. However, these seats were still empty. The Heavenly Masters hadn't arrived yet. Yi Shiwen and the space-time Heavenly Master hadn't become the Eastern Heavenly Venerate yet, so they couldn't be on equal footing with them. Yi Shiwen naturally sat on the left side of the seat, while Bian Xiaoya and the others entered the Emperor's area, found their own thrones, and sat down. On the other hand, Sun Diandian and the other higher-ups of the human clan, who she had brought with her, were further away. They didn't even have a seat. However, to them, it was already a great honor to have such an opportunity to attend the ceremony, not to mention anything else. Not long after Yi Shiwen took his seat, the space-time Heavenly Master came in with his subordinates and naturally sat opposite Yi Shiwen. The moment the two of them entered the hall, everyone's eyes fell on them. There was absolute silence. The two of them just sat opposite each other and didn't have any disputes. This made many people feel disappointed in their hearts. The Western Heavenly Master has arrived. A loud voice came from outside the Eastern Heavenly Venerate mansion. Everyone's eyes looked towards the outside of the hall. They saw an ethereal and graceful figure appear in front of everyone. It was as if a graceful fairy had appeared in front of everyone. Who else could it be but the Western Heavenly Master? The Western Heavenly Master looked indifferent. He passed through the emperors and heavenly masters. Only when he passed by Yi Shiwen, he nodded slightly and smiled at him. It was as if the whole room was filled with brilliance. Yi Shiwen felt the goodwill of the Western Heavenly Master and nodded back. The Western Heavenly Master had just sat on the top few thrones when another loud voice came from outside. The Southern Heavenly Master has arrived. A figure rushed into the hall. It seemed slow, but it was actually very fast. Although it seemed slow, it only took a moment to appear on one of the thrones at the top of the hall and sit beside the West Heavenly Venerate. After Heavenly Venerate Nan sat down, another loud voice was heard in the hall. The Northern Heavenly Master has arrived. Under everyone's gaze, the Northern Heavenly Master also appeared on the throne, almost as if he had teleported. Yi Shiwen nodded slightly. In the Fortune God dynasty, apart from the Middle Heavenly Master, who was above the Heavenly Masters, there were also several great Heavenly Masters who were considered equal. In fact, there were differences in status. Usually, it was not obvious. However, at this time, it was obvious who was strong and who was weak, who was first and who was last. Among the remaining great Heavenly Masters, the quiet Northern Heavenly Master had the highest status, second only to the Middle Heavenly Master. The Western Heavenly Master was obviously the most junior among the great Heavenly Masters, so he came first. Of course, after he became the Eastern Heavenly Master, he would be the one with the least seniority. The Southern Heavenly Master was very enthusiastic about competing for the position of Eastern Heavenly Master. However, the candidate he recommended was far inferior to Yi Shiwen and Spacetime Heavenly Master in all aspects, so he automatically withdrew from the selection. This made his mood very bad. His face was tense, and it did not relax. The styles of the Heavenly Masters were also different. Without exception, they were all very strong. They were the top existences in the Fortune God dynasty. Countless thoughts flashed through Yi Shiwen's mind in an instant. Suddenly, a loud announcement sound was heard. The Middle Heavenly Master has arrived. As the last Middle Heavenly Master to arrive, he showed his majesty as the Vice Emperor of the Fortune God dynasty. Golden flowers filled the sky, golden lotuses sprouted from the ground, and celestial music filled the air. An exotic fragrance assailed the nostrils, and all kinds of phenomena appeared in the main hall. This was naturally produced by the heavenly Tao. It was the supreme preference for the strong. Accompanied by these phenomena, the Middle Heavenly Master appeared in front of everyone. He sat in the empty seat in the middle of the great Heavenly Masters with familiarity. That was the position of the Middle Heavenly Master, and also the position where everyone revolved around. After arriving, the Middle Heavenly Master revealed a smile on his face and said, "Everyone arrived first, but I'm late." "It doesn't matter. We just arrived for a while, so we're not late," the Western Heavenly Master said. His voice was as pleasant as a silver bell, and it had a unique charm. "It's good that you're not late." Then, the Middle Heavenly Master glanced at Yi Shiwen and Spacetime Heavenly Master and said, "Today is to select the Eastern Heavenly Master and also to hold the Eastern Heavenly Master's coronation ceremony. I won't say much. Today's protagonist is not me, but Wu Zun and Spacetime Heavenly Master." Chapter 36:13. The Middle Heavenly Venerable's words made everyone's gaze shift from him to Yi Shiwen and Shirkong Heavenly Venerable. Yes, these two were the main characters today. Even the other great Heavenly Venerables were just a foil to these two. The Eastern Heavenly Master position that everyone was most concerned about would also be decided today. Yi Shiwen and Space-Time Heavenly Master were like clay sculptures. They didn't show any expression, as if the person that the middle Heavenly Master was talking about wasn't them. Everyone's gaze couldn't move them in the slightest. Soon, the middle Heavenly Master said again, "I won't say much nonsense. Both of you can fight in the arena of the Eastern Heavenly Master Mansion. Whoever wins in the end will be the new Eastern Heavenly Master." After saying that, the middle celestial waved his hand, and a spatial crack appeared above them. On the other side of the crack was a desolate world. Yellow sand filled the sky, and it looked ancient and desolate. In this world, all kinds of traces left by predecessors could be seen at any time. Many powerful traces could still be seen even now, allowing people to feel the intensity of the previous battles. Using the entire world as a battlefield was something that only an Empyrean could do. And if an Empyrean wanted to determine victory or defeat, they would need such a battlefield. "Let's go," Yi Shiwen said. He didn't want to say anything more. He just took a big stride and entered the world of the battlefield. Space-Time Heavenly Master's figure flickered slightly. He disappeared from the throne and entered the world of the battlefield. "Master, you must win." Among the emperors, Bian Xiaoye couldn't help but clench her fists. There was a look of worry in her beautiful eyes. This time, her master's opponent was too strong. It was not an ordinary opponent. It was the Space-Time Heavenly Master who had been famous for so many years. Who dared to underestimate him? The two of them entered the world of the battlefield one after another. They faced each other from afar, like two pillars supporting the sky, standing between heaven and earth. The two of them didn't speak, but their auras spread out. The entire world of the battlefield solidified. It was truly solidified. Time, space, all the laws, everything was completely frozen. Both of their cultivations were world-shocking. They had already reached the point where they could create and destroy the world with a single thought. They were extremely terrifying. Everything was under the control of the two of them. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to see any clues, but these extreme Tao practitioners could clearly see that the laws in the battle arena were constantly changing under the control of the two of them. The two of them had yet to truly exchange blows, but the confrontation between them had already begun. It was silent and seemed like nothing, but it was actually terrifying. If a sovereign emperor accidentally barged into this battlefield world, they would instantly be crushed into pieces by the heavy pressure of the laws. Be it the imperial emperors or the heavenly venerables, their expressions were extremely solemn. They did not even dare to blink for fear of missing the most crucial part. Even a second could be the most important exchange of blows. Boom! All of a sudden, boundless waves of air swept out like a nuclear bomb had exploded. The entire world seemed to be on the verge of exploding. In the battle arena world, countless mountain peaks began to rumble and shake. Cracks appeared in the world and fell apart. It was the space-time Heavenly Venerate who took the lead. Looking from afar, his figure was really too oppressive. Endless laws manifested around his body, and his mouth chanted an ancient and mysterious language. No one knew what this language was, but its power was already visible. Around his body, magic power surged in all directions like a raging tide, just like boiling water. The black hair on the space-time Heavenly Venerate's shoulders stood up one by one. His eyes emitted a sharp and intimidating gaze, like a peerless beast. This process was too long. It could be a century, or it could be just a second. The space-time Heavenly Venerate finally made his move. As he chanted the ancient incantation, everyone was shocked to find that the space around Yi Shiwen was actually shattering inch by inch. It's the power of space. Many imperial emperors and heavenly venerables widened their eyes and sucked in a breath of cold air. The power of space was not considered rare. Even an imperial emperor who did not specialize in the law of space would have a very deep understanding of the law of space. This was the basic quality of an extreme-grade powerhouse, not to mention an heavenly venerate. For these extreme-grade powerhouses, they had walked their own path, which was unprecedented and unique. However, it did not mean that they knew nothing about other things. As the saying went, understanding one thing leads to 100 things. Their understanding of domains that did not belong to their own great Tao was much stronger than ordinary powerhouses who specialized in this aspect. These people could be said to be the group of people who had the most understanding of the law of space in the entire Fortune Divine Dynasty. Therefore, they understood the terrifying nature of the space-time Heavenly Venerates attack. Using the law of space to shatter space was nothing to these extreme grade powerhouses. They did not even need to use the law of space and could do it with brute force. But who was Yi Shiwen? He was also a powerful Heavenly Venerate. His domain was constantly affecting the surroundings. It could be said that the area around him was his absolute domain. If he wanted water to go up, it would go up. If he wanted the sun to rotate, the sun would rotate. It could be said that he could get the wind and get the rain if he wanted it. And the size of this domain, to a large extent, depended on the Heavenly Venerate's cultivation. If no one stopped him, he could even easily cover the entire world. This was the power of an Heavenly Venerate. If one wanted to break it, they could only face it head-on and use other martial skills to break it. But Spacetime Heavenly Venerate could actually compress his control of the law of space around Yi Shiwen. This was extremely terrifying. Spacetime Heavenly Venerate dominated with the law of space and law of time. He was indeed terrifying. They could not see the law of time, but in terms of the law of space, he was probably the best in this group. Being able to make such a big name in these years, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Even a middle Heavenly Venerate, Southern Heavenly Venerate, Northern Heavenly Venerate, Western Heavenly Venerate, and several other Heavenly Venerates who were at the top of the Fortune God dynasty narrowed their eyes slightly when they saw this scene. This method was indeed amazing. But soon, everyone discovered that although Spacetime Heavenly Venerate's performance was extremely eye-catching, Yi Shiwen's performance was even more terrifying. The power of the law of space was naturally needless to say. It was one of the strongest laws in the world. Although there was no difference in the strength of each person's Tao. In fact, there was a difference in the power of laws. The lethality of the law of space was simply terrifying. This kind of hidden attack was even more frightening. But Yi Shiwen's performance was also very experienced. In the face of such a terrifying attack, Yi Shiwen did not move, as if these attacks did not exist at all. If it were not for the pitch-black space holes around him, no one would have guessed it. Yi Shiwen did not use spiritual power, nor did he use any magical power because he did not use the magical power. He just stood there, completely withstanding the strange scene of the collapse of space with his own physical body. After the first gasping sound, the second gasping sound followed. Obviously, they also saw that this move of Yi Shiwen's was extraordinary. What a terrifying physical cultivation. I heard that he has cultivated the golden body of virtue. Golden body of virtue? No wonder, this is a bit interesting. If it were me, I would not be able to protect myself without using magical power. But if it's the golden body of virtue, then it's a different matter. After the exchange, the matter that Yi Shiwen had cultivated the golden body of virtue, which was originally only known by a small number of people, soon became known to everyone. After Yi Shiwen cultivated the golden body of virtue, although he did not publicize it everywhere, such a dazzling golden body would spread all over the world at the fastest speed as long as he showed it to the public. It was really because it was too different. In the long history of the entire Fortune God dynasty, only a few people had cultivated this kind of golden body of virtue. Among them, the most famous one was actually Fortune Heaven Lord himself. Of course, at that time, Fortune Heaven Lord had not become a supreme dominator yet, and relying on the golden body of virtue was enough to sweep away everyone. The middle celestial master looked at Yi Shiwen with some doubt in his eyes, but also a little playful. He had also cultivated the golden body of virtue, so he was very clear about how tyrannical the golden body of virtue was. It could be said that he was in an invincible position. Before he had successfully cultivated the virtuous golden body, he and the city lord of Yu City had been on par. It was difficult to say who was stronger. However, after he had cultivated the virtuous golden body, he had defeated the city lord of Yu City without much difficulty. Although the city lord of City's cultivation technique had been subdued by him, at their level, the so-called subduing effect was negligible. This was the benefit of the golden body of merit. Not only did it make him stronger, but it also made it harder for him to get injured and die. Therefore, he could attack freely and attack with all his might the moment he attacked. His attacks were like a storm, and this was the fundamental reason why he was able to defeat the city lord of Moon City. Everyone knew the benefits of the golden body of virtue, but since ancient times, there were only a few people who could cultivate it. In order to cultivate the golden body of virtue, he had made a lot of preparations. He did not know how many tens of thousands of years of preparation before he finally succeeded, including the great credit of destroying the seventh gold era. Although Yishiwen had also gained a lot of benefits from the destruction of the seventh gold era, the remaining ones were definitely not enough to practice the golden body of virtue after he had taken away most of them. In other words, the massive amount of merits that Yishiwen needed to successfully cultivate the golden body of virtue came from somewhere else. How many trump cards did Yishiwen hide? It was not by luck that he could reach this point after more than 10,000 years of cultivation. Today's battle was interesting. Chapter 36:14. Everyone could see that today's battle was obviously going to be fought. The space-time Heavenly Lord was indeed terrifying, but Yishiwen, who had the golden body of merit, wasn't a pushover either. They were afraid that he wasn't an ordinary person either. In this way, the battle between the two sides was more interesting than originally expected. It was no longer a situation where space-time Heavenly Master could sweep the world. Both sides hadn't used their true origins in this first exchange, so they were basically evenly matched. The space-time Heavenly Lord's space attack was extremely terrifying, and Yishiwen's virtuous tyrant body's golden body was even more shocking. However, the two were obviously not willing to just fight at this level. Yishiwen had not moved for many years. This time, he took the initiative to launch an attack. His whole body was shining with golden light. All kinds of divine marks were dancing, and the infinite laws were like a god cast in gold. He directly flew up. Because the space was sealed, Yishiwen did not tear the space to attack this time. He attacked purely with his speed. With Yishiwen's speed, he had already touched the law of time with his speed. It was conceivable how terrifying this speed was. It was like a rock flying between heaven and earth. With a flap of its wings, the sky fell, the earth cracked, and the galaxy collapsed. Everyone only saw Yishiwen's figure constantly flashing. It seemed slow, but it was fast. In an instant, he had already appeared in front of space-time Heavenly Master. A large black crack was torn behind him. That was Yishiwen's body breaking through the space shield used by space-time Heavenly Master. He did not have any magical power, nor did he have much spiritual power. He only relied on the strength of his own virtuous golden body to smash these space shields. This scene was very terrifying and very shocking. At this time, Yishiwen's performance was extremely dangerous. He knew that space-time Heavenly Master was by no means a pushover, nor was he someone who lived up to his name. Therefore, he did his best and attacked with all his strength. Boom! The space around space-time Heavenly Venerate exploded. He had already reached the core of space-time Heavenly Venerate. All of his space shields and space domains had collapsed. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Yishiwen finally swung his fist. The divine light was like rain, and the fist energy was like a giant dragon crossing the vast sky, directly blasting at space-time Heavenly Master's chest. Space-time Heavenly Venerate sneer at this scene. Your methods are not bad, but you're still far from being a threat to me. A golden light flashed in his eyes. Suddenly, countless blades flashed between heaven and earth, smashing the fist energy of Yishiwen's 6 paths of reincarnation fist into pieces. This was a space magic blade, evolved from the space laws, so it was extremely terrifying and powerful. In an instant, Yishiwen's fist energy was blasted into dregs and turned into a rain of light that scattered all over the sky. Obviously, the space-time Heavenly Master was able to deal with Yishiwen's attack with ease. Really, Yishiwen couldn't help but sneer. He simply didn't take his words seriously. This was a verbal confrontation between the two of them. Roar! Yi Shiwen roared and clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. Then he punched out and instantly turned into a sky full of fist shadows that enveloped the space-time heavenly master. These fist images looked simple, but each of them contained world-destroying power. They were extremely terrifying. A single fist could tear apart stars and turn boundless worlds into dust. This battle arena had obviously been reinforced by the Eastern Heavenly Venerate for many years. In the face of the all-out attacks of 2 Heavenly Venerates, there were no signs of it collapsing. Yi Shiwen's speed was extremely fast, but the space-time Heavenly Venerate didn't move at all. He just watched indifferently. These fists approached him, but they were all blocked by the ripples of space. Boom! The space-time Heavenly Venerate made a move. Terrifying power was boiling all over his body. His spiritual power was burning, cutting off the aura of heaven and earth. Then he made a move. As soon as he made a move, his slender fingers were like swords, stabbing towards Yi Shiwen. It was extremely terrifying. It was a terrifying power that could cut off heaven and earth. He integrated the power of space into his palms, which was enough to cut everything in half. However, Yi Shiwen didn't care at all. He didn't dodge or evade. He just blasted out a fist with the same amount of power. Tit for tat. He didn't give way at all. Bang, bang, bang. Deafening rumbles could be heard as the 2 fists and palms collided. It was almost as if 2 huge pieces of iron had collided. The deafening rumble turned into a terrifying sound wave that swept out layer by layer. Wherever the sound wave passed, the laws were manifested. It should be said that the laws were stripped from the Great Path and then destroyed. This was the power of destruction. That terrifying extent made the eyelids of many emperors and heavenly venerates twitch. It was really terrifying. If they were in Yi Shiwen's shoes, they might not be able to escape death. The golden body of merit is really good. It actually allowed you to fight with me barehanded until now. It's not in vain that not many people have cultivated it since ancient times. The space-time heavenly venerate said indifferently. He seemed to be praising Yi Shiwen, but he was extremely proud. Because if Yi Shiwen, who had cultivated the golden body of merit, was terrifying, then wasn't he, who could fight with Yi Shiwen barehanded, even more terrifying? Although Yi Shiwen was really barehanded, and the space-time heavenly venerate used the law of space to fight, it was fine as long as he could achieve the final result. He didn't pay too much attention to Yi Shiwen, because Yi Shiwen wasn't one of the great heavenly masters, nor was he one of the city lords of the 10 great divine cities. He wasn't even one of those old heavenly masters who were famous throughout the world. He was only a junior. In the heavenly venerate realm, he was already considered a latecomer, and Yi Shiwen's qualifications were not worth mentioning compared to him. The qualifications of a heavenly venerate were not just relying on his seniority, but real combat power. Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. The palm of the space-time heavenly venerate was covered with the law of space, which could cut off everything. However, how could his golden body of merit be so simple? No matter how the space-time heavenly venerate attacked with the law of space, it couldn't break through his defense. His body was protected by layers of golden light of merit. Any attack could be eliminated by the golden body of merit. Ordinary attacks couldn't even break his golden light of merit, let alone the golden body of jade merit. Rumble. A series of explosions erupted from the point where the fists and palms of the 2 collided, turning into divine brilliance that filled the sky like a tide. The speed of their exchange was too fast, and it seemed to be getting faster and faster. The emperors gradually felt that even if they opened their heavenly eyes and poured all their spiritual power into their eyes, they were starting to lose sight. The heavenly venerates also felt extremely strained. With their heavenly eyes, nothing in the world could be hidden from them, but it was still extremely obscure and difficult to understand. The endless divine brilliance turned into a light rain that filled the entire battlefield, making it impossible to see what was happening. However, soon, Yi Shiwen's voice came from it. Space-time heavenly venerate, Is this all you've got? The space-time heavenly venerate's answer was still indifferent. This level is enough to defeat you. Boom! There was a huge roar, and two figures smashed all the divine brilliance and light rain, revealing their figures. It was none other than Yi Shiwen and the space-time heavenly venerate. After another collision, both of them retreated, and it was hard to tell who had the upper hand. This level is not enough to defeat me. The corner of Yi Shiwen's mouth raised, as if he was mocking. Is that so? What kind of person was the space-time heavenly venerate? How could he be angered by Yi Shiwen's words? However, his expression became more and more indifferent, and the sharpness in his eyes became more and more intense. Sweet words. He grabbed at the void with his hand, and countless spatial laws condensed, turning into a sword. It was the space blade, and it directly slashed towards Yi Shiwen. There were no rules to speak of. It was just a simple sword slash, but it made people feel as if they couldn't grasp its trajectory at all. The reason why they felt this way was because this sword seemed ordinary, without any technique or divine power, but it contained a myriad of changes. It was the pinnacle of techniques. However, this sword slashed down, and it seemed as if the sky was filled with sword shadows. They interweaved into a sword net that enveloped Yi Shiwen. No matter how he dodged or how he tried to escape, he would always be within the predetermined range of this sword. It could be said to be all-encompassing. Everything in the world and all the rules were wrapped in it, and no one could resist it. Yi Shiwen's expression remained unchanged. The space-time heavenly venerate's cultivation in swordsmanship was indeed shocking. He had only heard that the space-time heavenly venerate dominated with the laws of time and space, but he had never heard of such a cultivation in martial arts. However, it made no difference to him, because no matter what changes the other party had, he could only break through them with force. He pinched a seal with both of his palms, and countless golden lights turned into thousands of dazzling divine marks that condensed, evolving into a seal. It was the martial venerate seal. Yi Shiwen unleashed his revered martial seal, and suddenly blocked the sword. Bang! There was an extremely loud rumble. This time, the two of them weren't fighting purely with their physical bodies. The laws and magic power ripples that surged out swept across the entire battle arena in a frenzy that could be seen with the naked eye. Even in the main hall, everyone could still feel the battlefield trembling. Even though it had been reinforced, it was still trembling. If it was an ordinary world, it would completely collapse with just one blow. Bang! 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 Everyone's fight became more and more intense. The space-time heavenly venerate only grabbed the space blade with one hand and launched an attack towards Yi Shiwen. Every slash was a simple slash, but it contained thousands of changes. The mysteries of swordsmanship were all in it, revealing the extremely terrifying swordsmanship cultivation of the space-time heavenly venerate. However, Yi Shiwen was as motionless as a mountain. No matter how terrifying the opponent's swordsmanship was, he resisted it with all his strength. The battle became more and more intense. Chapter 36:15. The two powerhouses didn't give way to each other, and the scene of the fight became more and more terrifying and intense. Every attack of space-time Tianzuan was extremely terrifying, but Yi Shiwen was as motionless as a mountain. No attack could move him. Both sides fought with their lives on the line. From the scene, it seemed that neither side was injured, but that was because the defensive means of the other were too terrifying. In fact, they were fighting with all their strength. Yi Shiwen's martial venerate seal could always evolve all kinds of visions, and thousands of great paths evolved within it. His arms rotated, and the martial venerate seal in one hand was used for defense, evolving thousands of martial paths to resist the space blades of space-time heavenly venerate. One was pure and simple, and the other was complex and vast. Each was extreme and equally terrifying. His other hand constantly attacked with the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, attacking space-time heavenly venerate without giving way. There was defense and attack, and everything was colorful. Every punch turned into a world of 6 paths of reincarnation, dragging the two space-time heavenly venerates into a world of death. Wu Zun is truly unfathomable. He has only been cultivating for a little over 10,000 years, yet he already has such a cultivation base. At this rate, it won't be long before he's on equal footing with us. South Tianzuan said with a serious expression. He was not surprised by space-time heavenly venerate. Space-time heavenly venerate had ruled the central region for so many years without the middle Tianzuan. How could he be an ordinary person? Although he hadn't reached their level yet, the only thing that was lacking was the tempering of time. However, what really surprised him was Yi Shiwen. It was simply a miracle that Yi Shiwen could fight space-time heavenly venerate for more than 10,000 years. Both of them are peerless talents. No matter who becomes the Eastern Tianzuan, it won't be long before they can truly enter our ranks. Northern Tianzuan said. He was also happy to see the East heavenly venerate's strength. To a certain extent, the Fortune Divine Dynasty was one entity, and their interests were one. As long as the East heavenly venerates were strong enough, they would be able to suppress the tyrants of their respective domains and resist the invasion of other domains. Western Tianzuan's eyes lit up as he watched the two of them fight. He said, "It's a little strange. Look at that Wu Zun. Although he seems to be defending and attacking, he still defends more than he attacks. With the power of his virtuous golden body, he doesn't need to defend so much." Middle Sky Master nodded and said, "That's true. Although Space-Time Sky Master's Space Blade is powerful, it won't be easy to break Wu Zun's golden body of virtue. However, Wu Zun is still defending more than attacking. I'm afraid it's not as simple as being cautious." Suddenly, the Space-Time Heavenly Master put away the Space Blade, looked at Yi Shiwen indifferently, and said, "You're really bold. You dare to use me to hone yourself." Yi Shiwen looked at the Space-Time Heavenly Master and said, "I was discovered earlier than I expected. It's indeed rare to have an opponent who can fight me. Unfortunately, I was still discovered." He was indeed using the Space-Time Heavenly Master to hone himself. That was why he defended more than he attacked. He had just entered the 7th realm, and it hadn't been long. 10 years was only enough for him to consolidate a little. That was why he thought of using the battle to consolidate. Of course, this wasn't something that ordinary people could do. There is no need to mention the horror of the Space-Time Heavenly Master. It was difficult to meet an opponent in the same realm. Who would dare to use the Space-Time Heavenly Master to hone themselves? Therefore, even the Space-Time Heavenly Master hadn't expected him to exploit a loophole. But it's almost there. I've completely comprehended this realm, said Yi Shiwen. A battle was naturally a lot for a Heavenly Master. However, it was simply impossible to improve while fighting. Only Yi Shiwen could do this with the help of the mysterious space. Space-Time Heavenly Master, you dominate with the space-time law. Now, I can only see your space law. Why? Do you think that I'm not worthy enough for you to use the time law? Said Yi Shiwen with a slight smile. The space-time Heavenly Master's expression was indifferent, but he clearly didn't deny the meaning of Yi Shiwen's words. This extreme contempt and extreme self-confidence made many Emperor Lords and Heavenly Masters feel amazed. Yi Shiwen was already strong enough, but the space-time Heavenly Master was still dismissive. He didn't take Yi Shiwen seriously at all. What kind of self-confidence was this? You're too hateful. Let's see what you have to say after Master defeats you. Bian Xiaoye clenched her fists so hard that her joints turned white. Wu Zun, do you really think that I didn't notice what you were thinking? I was just testing your cultivation. You're only at the 7th realm now. Compared to me, you're still too far behind, said the space-time Heavenly Master. I don't know what gave you such courage. Today, I'll let you know that the gap between the 7th realm and the 8th realm is something that you absolutely can't overcome. Boom! After the space-time Heavenly Master finished speaking, his strength completely erupted. The terrifying coercion of the 8th realm was released completely. The expressions of many veteran Heavenly Masters changed. Everyone knew that the space-time Heavenly Master should have entered the high-level Heavenly Master realm. However, the 7th realm was also a high-level Heavenly Master. The same was true for the 8th realm, and the same was true for the 9th realm. No one knew which realm the space-time Heavenly Master was at. Many people guessed that the space-time Heavenly Master might be at the 8th realm, but there was no evidence. Previously, the space-time Heavenly Master had only fought with the combat power of the 7th realm. Even so, it was enough to fight Yi Shiwen evenly. Now that the strength of the 8th realm had completely erupted, the space-time Heavenly Master was more than twice as strong as before. You should be proud that you were able to force me to use my full strength, Wu Zun. This is not your era after all. You can't compete with me for the Eastern Heavenly Master position, said the space-time Heavenly Master slowly, his voice extremely cold. The spiritual power around his body was exploding, surging out like a crazy tide. Finally, it's more like it. Facing the strength of the space-time Heavenly Master that shocked many people, Yi Shiwen was not surprised. He had long been prepared. Otherwise, the Middle Heavenly Master would not have asked him to listen to the teachings first and then convene the Eastern Heavenly Master selection after he had broken through. If it had been in the past, he probably would not have been a match for the space-time Heavenly Master when he was at the 6th realm. After all, the difference of 2 realms was too great. However, if you think that you could defeat me without using the law of time, then you are too naive, said Yi Shiwen, his eyes bursting with a terrifying light. Facing the space-time Heavenly Master who had displayed the strength of the 8th realm, he did not retreat at all. Instead, he took the initiative to attack. It was the same 6 paths of reincarnation fist, but Yi Shiwen's fist contained the radiance of the golden hepta, which scattered like rain. Boom! Yi Shiwen's entire aura suddenly exploded, as if it was 10 times more terrifying. What? Not just the space-time Heavenly Master? The previous Wu Zun did not use his full strength? Many Heavenly Masters and Emperors stared with their eyes wide open, still in complete disbelief. The exchange just now was already rare, but it was still not the full strength. Yi Shiwen's fist blasted out, like a fierce dragon descending from the sky, huge and powerful. The huge body swept across the universe, rushing towards the space-time Heavenly Master. The fist energy spread out, drowning the entire battlefield. At this time, Yi Shiwen was even more terrifying. In an instant, Yi Shiwen touched the first space boundary arranged by the space-time Heavenly Master. It was almost like brine hitting tofu, instantly broken. The speed was too fast. Boom, boom, boom. Yi Shiwen's fist pierced through, instantly breaking through the 3,000 layers of space boundary arranged by the space-time Heavenly Master. Originally, with Yi Shiwen's strength, it was not difficult to break through 1 or 2 layers. Breaking through several layers in a row began to be a little difficult. But now, Yi Shiwen broke through 3,000 layers of space boundary with 1 punch. It was conceivable to what extent the destructive power of Yi Shiwen's fist energy had increased. It was simply shocking. Even the great Supreme Master's expressions changed. They sat up straight one after another, no longer as lazy as they were just now. And the space-time Heavenly Master finally reacted. Yi Shiwen's punch was extraordinary, and the power of this punch was many times more tyrannical than before. But it was too late. Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. It did not give him time to react at all. Yi Shiwen's fist directly hit the chest of the space-time Heavenly Master. Puff! The space-time Heavenly Master instantly spat out a mouthful of golden blood, spraying out like a heavy rain. He himself was bombarded like a meteor, flying backward. Blood blossomed in the sky, and the space-time Heavenly Master hit the ground hard. The entire battlefield was shaking as if it would collapse at any time. Everyone clearly saw that there was a shocking big hole in the chest of the space-time Heavenly Master. A mass of golden hepta chi wrapped around it, like a burning flame. What a terrifying blow. Some Empyreans swallowed a mouthful of saliva. With their vast experience and knowledge, they had seen all sorts of scenes before. However, in that instant just now, they felt a deep sense of shock. If it were them, they would have been killed on the spot. Now I know why Wu Zun has always been so skillful. I didn't expect that he still had such a trump card. I have seen golden heptachi, and it is indeed the #1 killing method. But I have never seen or even heard of it to be this terrifying. Many celestial venerables and imperial emperors looked at a celestial venerable in the field. He cultivated the law of gung metal, and they hoped that he could see what kind of technique this was. As the saying went, everyone had their own specialties. In this aspect, he was the expert. Seeing everyone looking over, the man quickly said, "Don't look at me. I don't know what the hell is going on. This golden heptachi is more terrifying and pure than any golden heptachi I have ever seen." As he spoke, a look of desire flashed in his eyes. He was very clear that if he, who specialized in the golden hepta law, could obtain this golden heptachi, his cultivation would have a breakthrough. Chapter 36:16. However, his eyes soon dimmed because he quickly thought that this was not realistic at all. With Yi Shiwen's strength and status, how could he have a chance to succeed? But his eyes were still full of a look of pity. In his opinion, this level of golden heptachi in the hands of Yi Shiwen, a complete amateur who did not know anything about it, was simply a reckless waste of God's gifts. If it was him, then he could completely use it. Could this be the trump card that Wu Zun used to kill the Chaos Overlord? Someone couldn't help but ask. They thought of the time when Yi Shiwen fought against Chaos Overlord previously. His strength also erupted midway and became terrifying. In the end, even Chaos Overlord was defeated. However, it was obvious that he only heard hearsay and did not really see that battle. Otherwise, he would know how outrageous his guess was. Of course not. When Yi Shiwen used that trump card, the power was 10 times more terrifying than now. Obviously not. There were still people who were at the scene at the time. They quickly stood up and refuted the rumor. Everyone was shocked. It seemed that Yi Shiwen's trump card were far from just one or two. Each of them could make his own combat power skyrocket. It was really shocking. Among the crowd, Mr. Huang suddenly opened his eyes because he was different from other celestial masters. He was a person of the 7th Gold Era. Others might not know, but he naturally knew about the 7th Gold Ancestral Chi. It was the essence of the entire 7th Gold Era. From the birth of the entire 7th Gold Era to its destruction, it had only appeared 2 or 3 times in such a long time. It could be said to be the most precious treasure of the era. When the 7th Gold Era was destroyed, he also gained a lot of benefits, but obviously, none could compare with the 7th Gold Ancestral Chi that Yi Shiwen obtained. He also guessed it. Although he didn't know how Yi Shiwen did it, it was obviously obtained from the 7th Gold Era. Another person who had guessed it was the Middle Heavenly Master. Although he wasn't from the 7th Gold Era, he and Yi Shiwen had joined hands to destroy the 7th Gold Era. So, he could roughly guess that the 7th Gold Ancestral Chi should have come from the 7th Gold Era. Back then, he had thought that he had obtained the greatest benefit from the destruction of the Gong Jin Era, but now it seemed that this was not necessarily the case. Yi Shiwen launched a brand new attack, while everyone was discussing and speculating. He obviously wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity after severely wounding Spacetime Heaven. He took the initiative to attack first. Since Spacetime Heavenly Venerate wasn't willing to use his time laws, then he would take advantage of the situation to kill him, not giving him a chance to use his time laws. Yi Shiwen's big hand grabbed towards the void, and a long blade formed by the 7th Metal Ancestral Chi appeared. Obviously, this kind of 7th Metal Ancestral Chi was very rare. There weren't many of them, even in the 7th Metal Era. They couldn't recognize it, but they knew how terrifying this 7th Metal Ancestral Chi was. Under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen made his move. He was like the only god walking between the heaven and the earth. He made his move in a split second, and his long blade chopped down with indomitable force. The principle of 1 force can overcome 10 was vividly manifested at this time. Boom! An incomparably huge mushroom cloud slowly rose up. It was a terrifying explosive force that could shatter an atom. The Gung metal blade almost split the space-time Heavenly Lord's body in half on the spot, causing a large amount of blood mist to erupt. When the saber fell, it didn't just cover the space-time Heavenly Lord's body. Even the space-time Heavenly Lord's primordial spirit was enveloped within it. It was almost about to ignite the space-time Heavenly Lord's primordial spirit and kill his primordial spirit with one strike. To kill these extreme Tao powerhouses, destroying their primordial spirits was the fastest and most effective method. Boom, 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 boom. A series of terrible explosions evolved into countless strange phenomena. Yishuan's attack had just begun. It fell like a storm, and every strike was done with all his strength. Fight! Yishuan was completely crazy. He held the 7th metal-long blade in his hand, and its power was infinite. He killed everything. The space enchantment around space-time Heavenly Venerate had just formed, and it was broken. He was no match for space-time Heavenly Venerate at all. It had to be said that the current Yi Shiwen was too terrifying, especially with the golden body of merit as a foundation. He was even more unscrupulous and didn't hold back. All kinds of secret techniques and martial arts erupted under Yi Shiwen's 7th metal-long blade, and all of them were used on space-time Heavenly Venerate. Space-time Heavenly Venerate was beaten to the ground. The land within a radius of thousands of miles collapsed, as if a huge hole had been punched in the battlefield world. Die! Yishuan tried his best. His spiritual power burned to the extreme, and his blade fell. He really wanted to seriously injure space-time Heavenly Venerate. Both of them were competing for the Eastern Heavenly Venerate. There was no room for mercy because the other party was not an existence that could be held back. Even if he couldn't kill space-time Heavenly Venerate, he must injure him until he had no combat power. This series of attacks seemed to take a long time, but in fact it only took a few breaths. In just a few breaths, space-time Heavenly Venerate, who was once high and mighty and invincible, had already entered a stage of near death. He was almost killed by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's final attack fell. First, it was the 7th metal-long blade, followed by the martial elder seal. After spinning a circle, it expanded against the wind and grew to a size of thousands of miles. It fell down fiercely, intending to kill space-time Heavenly Venerate. If these attacks really hit, then the consequences were simply unimaginable. When these attacks fell, a strange ripple rotated. Then everyone saw that whether it was Yishuan's martial elder seal or the 7th metal-long blade, their movements suddenly slowed down. It was so slow that even Sun Diandian, who had not yet become a god, could see it clearly. It was as if the fast movement suddenly became slow. Everyone was stunned. How could this be? However, among them, the middle Heavenly Venerate reacted the fastest. He reacted almost instantly. His speed was very fast, and he even touched the edge of the time law. Therefore, he understood this the most. Time law, it's the time law. Everyone quickly reacted after the middle Heavenly Master's reminder. Sure enough, time had strangely slowed down in that area. In fact, it had slowed down to more than 100 times its usual speed. The law of time was exerting its influence on Yishuan's attack. Many people sighed in their hearts. Previously, Space-Time Heavenly Venerate vowed that he could defeat Yishuan without using the time law at all. How confident and elegant was that? However, in the end, he was still forced to use the time law. They all saw that only Space-Time Heavenly Venerate could use the time law to interfere with Yishuan's attack at this time. This stalemate only lasted for a moment. Time law tried to interfere with Yishuan's 7th metal-long blade and martial elder seal, but it was smashed in an instant. Yishuan's attack power was so great that it could smash the laws. It was impossible to affect Yishuan for a long time. But for Space-Time Heavenly Venerate, such a little time was enough, giving him a chance to escape. However, Space-Time Heavenly Venerate, who was about to be bombarded, instantly disappeared without a trace. Rumble! Yishuan's 7th metal-long blade and martial elder seal fell on the ground, and a terrifying giant pit was formed instantly. It even shook the foundation of the entire battle arena, almost shattering the world. One could imagine how terrifying this attack was, and how powerful Yishuan was when he attacked with all his strength. Yi Shiwen frowned slightly because he had already reacted at that moment. It was just that the attack had been brewing for too long and could not be withdrawn. He actually let Space-Time Heavenly Venerate escape. If Space-Time Heavenly Venerate did not escape, this attack would have been enough to make him completely lose his combat power. Although Heavenly Venerate's recovery ability was very terrifying, there was also a limit. It was impossible to recover indefinitely. When the attack power exceeded the upper limit of recovery, even Heavenly Venerates would die. They were competing for the Eastern Heavenly Venerate, and it was not a life and death battle. At that point, it was enough to determine the winner and loser. There was no need to say anything more. Unfortunately, it was all for naught. Is it the time law? The corner of Yi Shiwen's mouth raised into a cold smile, as if he was mocking. The arrogant look of Space-Time Heavenly Venerate was still vivid in his mind, but now he immediately slapped his own face. Huff, huff, huff. Space-Time Heavenly Venerate was constantly panting, and his body reassembled in the distance. In the battle just now, his physical body was torn apart, and his spirit was also ignited by the gung metal ancestral chi. It could be said that he suffered a heavy loss. In the battle just now, he suffered a big loss. At this moment, the world was silent. He was covered in blood and looked extremely tragic, but his expression became more and more indifferent. You are very skilled. Finally, Space-Time Heavenly Venerate said slowly. This was not a compliment, but the truth. He almost recovered from Yi Shiwen's attack just now, and he still had a little lingering fear. Unfortunately, I still let you escape. I couldn't finish the battle in one blow. Yi Shiwen said with a little regret. But it's good to see you slap your own face. At this time, all the Heavenly Venerates were shocked. The scene just now was too terrifying. What kind of person was Space-Time Heavenly Venerate? Although he was not one of the great Heavenly Venerates, he was also one of the top figures under the great Heavenly Venerates. He was a rare existence in the world, but in the battle just now, he was suppressed and almost lost his combat power. If they did not see it with their own eyes, they would not believe this kind of thing. The more they thought about it, the more shocked they became. The more they thought about it, the more they wanted to take a breath of cold air. Although Yi Shiwen caught Space-Time Heavenly Venerate off guard, they finally saw the power of the gung metal ancestral chi. Chapter 36:17. The power of the gung metal ancestral chi was too terrifying. The Space-Time Heavenly Lord's space enchantment couldn't protect himself at all. It was like brine hitting tofu. He was easily defeated. Originally, Yi Shiwen relied on the golden body of merit to attack without any scruples. The Space-Time Heavenly Lord's physical strength was not as good as Yi Shiwen's, but he could use the space law to arrange a space enchantment to protect himself. Yi Shiwen couldn't break it completely. This was the best defense. However, after Yi Shiwen used the gung metal ancestral chi, this balance was broken at once. The Space-Time Heavenly Lord was instantly beaten up. Many people secretly warned themselves that they must be more careful in the future. This was really too terrifying. Yi Shiwen's fighting strength had erupted in a split second, and only this split second was enough to determine the outcome of the battle. They were contemplating that they must find a way to avoid it, but many people only felt extremely pessimistic because Yi Shiwen's outbreak was too sudden. They didn't even have a way to prevent it. This kind of attack could only contain him before he used it. I didn't expect you to hide such a method. Originally, I didn't use the time law because I wanted to deal with the method you used to kill the Chaos Overlord. Now it seems that I can't wait any longer. The Space-Time Heavenly Lord's expression became more and more indifferent. He finally revealed the reason why he didn't use the time law. It turned out that he was guarding against Yi Shiwen's sudden attack. Even a character like the Chaos Overlord was defeated by Yi Shiwen. How could he not be careful? Or, in his opinion, Yi Shiwen's current state was not worthy for him to use the time law. Although the time law was parallel, people generally thought that the time law was more powerful. Although they were the two basic laws that constituted this world, the time law was obviously more magical and the power used was more bizarre. Originally, you said that you escaped from the Moon City Lord. Everyone had doubts, but when you killed the Chaos Overlord, no one had any doubts anymore. The Spacetime Heavenly Lord said slowly, as if he was talking to everyone and himself. However, you haven't used that trump card since the beginning. I think that it's either a one-time use or a limited number of times, or you'll have to pay a heavy price to use it, or both. That's why you didn't use it right away. Spacetime Heavenly Venerate looked indifferent. Although he seemed aloof, he wasn't really ignorant about Yi Shiwen. He had investigated and made speculations, and the time law was a means he used to deal with Yi Shiwen's outburst. Unfortunately, he hadn't forced Yi Shiwen to that point, and Yi Shiwen had instead forced him to this point. This was something he had never thought would happen. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but sigh in the face of Spacetime Tianzuan's speculation. Spacetime Tianzuan was indeed very keen. He had only used it once, and he had already guessed so many things. Although the number of times he could use it wasn't really limited, as he said, the price to pay every time he used it was too high. He didn't want to use it unless it was necessary. I don't even need to use it to defeat you. What I have now is enough. Do you still have a way to fight now? Opposite Yi Shiwen, the blood on Spacetime Tianzuan's body was still flowing, and his spirit was still burning. How could Yi Shiwen's seventh metal ancestral qi be expelled so easily? If the seventh metal ancestral qi couldn't be expelled, there was no way to recover. No matter how strong a Tianzuan's recovery ability was, there was a limit, and the seventh metal ancestral qi obviously exceeded that limit. Of course, Spacetime Tianzuan looked at Yi Shiwen coldly. For me, who controls time, I am invincible. No one can defeat me or kill me. As he spoke, a golden light erupted from his body, and there were bursts of strange fluctuations. Immediately afterward, everyone discovered that the seventh metal ancestral qi that was still attached to Spacetime Tianzuan's body began to decay little by little, and then disappeared without a trace. Then, his injuries seemed serious, but they were completely healed in an instant. Many people exclaimed, but many Tianzuan had already guessed the answer. Spacetime Tianzuan had used the time law to accelerate the flow of time on his body. The seventh metal ancestral qi that he might have needed a few days and nights to expel was achieved in an instant. After the time acceleration, his body had actually passed a few days and nights. However, even though they knew this, they still couldn't help but exclaim when they saw this magical technique. There was simply no way to deal with such an enemy. It was no wonder that Spacetime Tianzuan had said that he was invincible and couldn't be defeated. No matter what kind of injuries were inflicted on his body, he could recover instantly. How could such an enemy be defeated? There was simply no way. In particular, these Tianzin were knowledgeable people, so they understood very well that these things were easy to say, but very difficult to do. In particular, among the Tianzuan present, although there might not be many who were proficient in the time law, they were more or less involved in the time law. In particular, there were many who had advanced into the time law domain with the speed law. Speeding up time and slowing down time are actually just some of the most basic methods to grasp the time law, which didn't seem like much. However, just like the previous space law, although the time law was powerful, it couldn't be affected by the time law at all for heavenly venerates who had jumped out of the three realms and weren't part of the five elements. They couldn't even control the fate of the heavenly great path. Normally, mastering speeding up time and slowing down time were only the basic stages. Using the time law to affect other heavenly venerates was the second stage of using the time law. However, what was truly terrifying was using the time law on oneself. It was already very difficult for heavenly venerates to affect them, but adding it on oneself was a completely different concept. It could be said that this was the third stage of controlling the time law. Generally, it was already pretty good for those who advanced into the time law with the speed law to grasp the first stage. Those who could advance to the second stage were already the cream of the crop. Being able to reach the third stage was already a miracle. Spacetime, Tianzuan truly lived up to his name. If he could add the time law to himself, he wouldn't care about any kind of injury. If Yi Shiwen's golden body of merit was difficult to be seriously injured and almost in an invincible position, Then space-time Tianzuan, who had advanced into the third stage of the time law, could be regarded as another kind of invincible position. It was impossible to be defeated. After being on guard, it was difficult for Yi Shiwen to defeat space-time Tianzuan in this state. I didn't expect space-time Tianzuan to have such strength. Wu Zun's performance is really shocking. With the strength of a lower realm, he beat space-time Tianzuan, who is a realm higher than him, for a period of time. However, this is his limit. In the end, Wu Zun's realm is still too low. If you want to defeat space-time Tianzuan, who controls both the time law and the space law, you have to be stronger than him and defeat him by force. Yes, whether it is the time law or the space law, it is hard to find an opponent in the same realm if you master any one of them, let alone space-time Tianzuan, who has mastered both the time law and the space law. The Celestial Masters were discussing, but they were not optimistic about Yi Shiwen's future. The previous stunning performance was just a flash in the pan. Compared with space-time Tianzuan, who went all out, Yi Shiwen's disadvantage was too obvious. It was hard to believe that he could win, unless he used the trump card that defeated the chaotic overlord, in which case there might be a fight. Among the emperors, Bian Xia listened to the discussions of the other celestial masters and couldn't help but worry. The level of the fight between the two had exceeded the realm that she could currently reach. It was too far away. She really couldn't judge who would win in the end. She just heard that the celestial masters were not optimistic about Yi Shiwen. Although she was dissatisfied, she couldn't do anything and couldn't refute. Yi Shiwen watched space-time Tianzuan's injuries recover in an instant. He couldn't help but curl his lips slightly and say, "Tisk, although I know that the time law is troublesome, this is more troublesome than I thought." Yi Shiwen was also very proficient in the time law and the space law. However, he was also the kind of person who could comprehend by analogy. He advanced to the time law from the speed law. His understanding in this aspect was much more profound than the average celestial master. However, compared with space-time Tianzuan, who specialized in the time law and the space law, there was still a big gap. And this gap was enough to determine a lot of things. In particular, Yi Shiwen could add the time law to himself without any scruples. This was something that even Yi Shiwen had to go all out to achieve, but he didn't play it down like space-time Tianzuan. Just now, he wanted to take advantage of space-time Tianzuan's recovery to make a move. Unfortunately, space-time Tianzuan was obviously on guard. Although it seemed that he didn't move, he was actually in a state of defense. It seemed that the situation just now was no longer possible. But it doesn't matter. Even if there is no opportunity, I can defeat you with my real strength. Yi Shiwen said faintly with a serious expression. Wu Zun, you don't have a chance anymore. You have no chance of winning after forcing my time law out. Space-time Tianzuan's entire body was floating in the sky. His entire body was exuding the fluctuations of the time law. The fluctuations were colorful, extremely mystical, and indescribably powerful. He was like a demon. The time law and the space law were intertwined, forming a big net around his body, protecting him in it. Obviously, after being ambushed by Yi Shiwen just now, he was obviously vigilant. He wouldn't give Yi Shiwen a chance to ambush him again. Then, he finally moved and made a move. Chapter 36:18. Yi Shiwen's expression became dignified. It was already very troublesome for space-time Heavenly Master to use either the space law or the time law. Now that the time law and the space law were intertwined, the strength of space-time Heavenly Master had increased by more than a little. His two supreme laws are actually fused by space-time Heavenly Master. What realm has he reached in this domain? It's incredible. Many celestial masters gasped. The more knowledgeable they were, the more terrified they felt at this time. At this time, space-time Heavenly Master was simply invincible. No one could rival him. In this domain, I am invincible. No one could surpass me. Space-time Heavenly Master was extremely confident. In this domain, he could simply be called the first person since ancient times. No one could rival him. He did not believe that anyone could surpass him in this domain. The void around him was distorted because the space law and time law had changed. These two laws were intertwined and affected the whole world. A terrifying aura suddenly surged out. Boom! The Celestial Master made a move. An unimaginable wave that surpassed the speed limit of the world directly blasted in front of Yi Shiwen. Boom! A slender palm directly slapped Yi Shiwen's body. Because the speed was too fast, everyone did not react. They only saw that this palm was almost going to penetrate Yi Shiwen's body. However, when this palm blasted 3 inches from Yi Shiwen's body surface, the clothes of destruction appeared on the surface of Yi Shiwen's body, emitting bursts of power of destruction. It blocked this palm and protected Yi Shiwen within it. As soon as the palm missed, it immediately disappeared. Yi Shiwen's expression became extremely dignified. This blow was fast and ruthless. If it were not for the clothes of destruction, perhaps he would have been hit. Whoosh! Another figure appeared and directly shot a palm towards Yi Shiwen. The speed was too fast. It simply surpassed the speed of light. The timeline was hit, and the space was chaotic. However, the figure of space-time Heavenly Master could not be seen at all. It was too fast. Although this series of attacks was blocked by the clothes of destruction, a small portion of the power of destruction contained in the clothes of destruction had been consumed. This rate of consumption was simply unheard of and extremely terrifying. Although it wasn't at the level where the Chaos Overlord could leave a palm print on the clothes of destruction, it was still terrifying enough. This speed isn't inferior to the battle when the Middle Heavenly Master defeated the Moon City Lord. However, the Middle Heavenly Master is a peak Heavenly Master, said Yi Shiwen. This was the first time he felt strenuous in the field of speed. In terms of speed, Empyrean spacetime was comparable to a Middle Empyrean. However, his cultivation realm was a level lower than a Middle Empyrean's. The two of them cultivated in completely different directions. The Middle Empyrean had reached the pinnacle of the speed laws and smoothly climbed into the time laws. As for the spacetime Heavenly Lord, because he was proficient in the time law, he had deduced the speed law. This meant that his speed was similarly tyrannical to the extreme. Yi Shiwen had attacked several times, but he was still a step too late. However, the radiance of the clothes of destruction had dimmed a little. You want to catch up to my speed? That's absolutely impossible. In this field, I have always been the strongest since ancient times, said the space-time Heavenly Lord faintly. His figure appeared in the distance, and his expression returned to indifference. He was also extremely confident. In this field, he naturally wasn't afraid of anyone. Among all the Empyreans, probably only the Middle Empyrean could match him in pure speed. Yi Shiwen couldn't hurt him. Since I can't catch up, then I won't chase after you, said Yi Shiwen. He quickly realized that he had been stuck in a dead end before. In the domain of speed, he was already considered fast. However, Spacetime Heavenly Venerate was clearly a notch above him. Fighting with Spacetime Heavenly Venerate in this domain would be too disadvantageous. He would be led by the nose. If it were the West Empyrean, the North Empyrean, and the South Empyrean, would they also have to compete with the Spacetime Heavenly Lord in this field? That was obviously unrealistic. However, if their speed was inferior to the Spacetime Heavenly Lord, would they be unable to defeat the Spacetime Heavenly Lord? That was obviously impossible. They all had their own methods. Everyone was different. Everyone's way of fighting was also different. If they were led away by others, then they wouldn't be far from death. Therefore, the best way was to fight each other, and all fight each other. Boom! The battle broke out again. As soon as Yi Shiwen's voice fell, the Spacetime Heavenly Lord directly rushed in front of Yi Shiwen with a dragon rise and phoenix fall. The long blade in his hand changed again. Originally, it was only integrated with the space law. Now it was integrated with the time law. It was the Spacetime blade, and its power had increased a lot. Bang! The Spacetime blade stood on the clothes of destruction. It actually left a deep mark on the clothes of destruction. It almost pierced through. When the speed was increased to a certain level, the power would increase to an unimaginable level. Yi Shiwen suddenly opened his eyes. He opened his magic eyes. Perhaps I can't compete with you in this domain, but I don't need to fight you head-on in this domain. As Yi Shiwen spoke, his whole body's magic power erupted. The 3,000 Martial Path phenomenon appeared and suddenly surrounded the space-time Heavenly Lord. The moment the space-time Heavenly Lord appeared to attack, Yishuin seized the opportunity. It was as if he had fallen into a quagmire. His extreme speed was greatly affected. This was Yishuin's method. Although the space-time Heavenly Lord could be called the best in terms of speed, he also had his own advantages. Just as Yishuin's 3,000 Martial Path phenomenon surrounded the space-time Heavenly Lord, the gung metal-long blade in Yishuin's hand finally moved. His speed also exceeded the speed of light. Even though he couldn't compare to the space-time Heavenly Lord, it didn't mean that he was slow. The blade slashed down. In an instant, it had already rushed in front of the space-time Heavenly Lord and fell on the space-time Heavenly Lord's body. Blood splashed out like a blooming flower. Space-time Empyrean groaned, and his figure disappeared. At this moment, he killed hundreds of the 3,000 Martial Path incarnations in succession and escaped. All of this took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. In this instant, the two sides almost entered a state of life and death. The clothes of destruction on Yishuin's body was almost cut open, and the space-time Heavenly Lord's chest also had a bloody wound. Blood burst out. Many Emperor Lords didn't see the entire process of the fight. They only saw that the clothes of destruction on Yishuin's body seemed to suddenly have a sword wound, which looked extremely terrifying. However, before everyone could exclaim in surprise, the space-time Heavenly Lord had already appeared again. At this time, there was no wound on his chest. In that instant, he recovered with the power of the law of time. This was the reason why he was invincible. Even if you could injure him, unless you killed him in one blow, he would be able to help you recover. At this time, the space-time Heavenly Lord had already appeared behind Yishuin. The space-time blade in his hand slashed down fiercely, directly slashing the clothes of destruction. The clothes of destruction finally couldn't hold on and was slashed open. It should be said that the defense just now had consumed too much of the power of destruction. Before it could recover, it had been used again. How could it resist? Clang! This sword slashed directly on Yishuin's back, but there was a sound of gold and iron colliding. Yishuin slashed horizontally with a backhand, once again slashing on the space-time Heavenly Lord's body. Poochie! Blood blossomed into a bloody flower once again. The space-time Heavenly Lord disappeared again. Yishuin wasn't anxious. He had completely calmed down. From the two previous exchanges, he could see that he was right. Although his speed couldn't catch up with the space-time Heavenly Lord, it didn't mean that he had to compete with him in the field of time and space. He had his advantages. When the space-time Heavenly Lord appeared again, he staggered. This time, his injury was slightly more serious than before. His offensive was interrupted by Yishuin. It's useless. Just like you said, you're invincible, but in the field of physical cultivation, I'm also standing at a height that you can't reach. No matter how strong you are, you can't hurt my golden body of merit, Yishuin said with incomparable confidence. In this field, he was indeed qualified to be arrogant. The method of exchanging injury for injury was useless for Yishuin now. Although the space-time Heavenly Lord was strong, he wasn't like the chaotic overlord who could crush Yishuin with absolute strength and force him to use the supreme ancestral symbol to resist. Oomph. The space-time Heavenly Lord just snorted coldly. It was unknown if he agreed with Yishuin's words. He stood in the air, and countless time and space laws began to rotate around him. The speed became faster and faster, turning into a huge vortex. The laws of time and space that filled the sky transformed into countless blades and transformed into a terrifying hurricane in the entire battle arena. It swept away everything and also wrapped Yishuin within it. In the face of this power, I don't believe that you can resist. The space-time Heavenly Lord laughed loudly, and the entire battle arena trembled. Many celestial masters couldn't help but be a little horrified when they saw this scene. The laws of time and space in the entire battle arena had become the most terrifying blades. No matter where Yi Shiwen went, even if he moved a little, he would be swept away. Sure enough, it only took an instant for Yi Shiwen to be swept away and swallowed up. Sure enough, is the winner going to be decided? Suddenly, just when everyone thought that the space-time Heavenly Lord was finally going to win, a golden light shot out from the space-time hurricane. It swept across almost unhindered and rushed straight in front of the space-time Heavenly Lord. Boom! The space-time Heavenly Lord was directly hit. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body flew backward. Chapter 36:19. Space-time Heavenly Lord unleashed his space-time power, but he was blasted away by Yi Shiwen instead. How is this possible? Many heavenly venerables and imperial emperors leaped up from their thrones. They were shocked to see this scene. No matter how one looked at it, Space-time Heavenly Master was far more powerful than Yi Shiwen when he erupted with all his strength. But now, Yi Shiwen not only blocked Space-time Heavenly Master's space-time power, but also counterattacked and injured Space-time Heavenly Master. Whether it was the power of time or the power of space, they were already extremely terrifying means of attack. Not to mention the fact that they were fused together. The might of this attack had risen to a shocking level. However, Yi Shiwen still managed to break free and launch a counterattack. How did he manage to escape? Even several great holy masters showed great interest in this point. No matter how they looked at it, it should be difficult for Yi Shiwen to survive, right? Unless he really relied on the virtuous golden body to force his way through. But even so, Yi Shiwen should not be unscathed. The virtuous golden body was terrifying, but it was not invincible. This is unexpected. Both sides have been fighting for so long, and there are still unexpected aspects. This is really a fierce battle between dragons and tigers. Qinzuan Nan said. At this moment, he no longer had any other thoughts, because he knew that the candidates he recommended were far inferior to the two people in front of him. They were simply not on the same level. Even if they were to forcefully stand out and compete, they would only be humiliating themselves. But when Yi Shiwen wanted to attack further, Space-time Heavenly Lord had already disappeared, not giving him a chance to attack further. You can actually block my space-time ability. It's really amazing. I have to admit that you're the most talented and powerful person I have ever met. Even so, you are still not strong enough to defeat me. This is not your era. Space-time Empyrean's voice was incomparably majestic. But compared to just now, he was still a little less confident. After all, Yi Shiwen actually broke his series of attacks, just now, which hurt his self-confidence. He no longer had the initial confidence. Yi Shiwen stood in the center of the entire battle arena. Golden rays of light flickered under his feet like a raging tide. They spread out in all directions layer by layer. Endless primal chaos, immortal light was fluttering, making him look like the god of creation of this world. He was creating a world. This is already my era. It's just that you haven't discovered it yet. Yi Shiwen faintly said. You've already done your best. It's my turn now. Space-time Heavenly Venerate had brought out all his strength to fight. Whether it was his 8th realm cultivation or his space-time power, it could be said that he had given it his all. He only had one goal, and that was to defeat Yi Shiwen. However, what about Yi Shiwen? When he was at the pinnacle of level 6, he was already strong enough to sweep across level 7 cultivators. Now that he had truly entered level 7, could it be that his combat ability had only increased by a little? Just now, when he was being strangled by Space-time Heavenly Venerate's space-time power, he had used the supreme ancestral symbol to protect himself. It could be said that without the supreme ancestral symbol, it would have been absolutely impossible for him to survive unscathed like this. Moreover, he could even seriously injure Space-time Heavenly Venerate. Of course, he did not completely use the supreme ancestral symbol to attack. He only used it slightly for defense, using the domain emitted by the supreme ancestral symbol to protect himself. Although Space-time Heavenly Venerate was very strong, there was still a fundamental gap between him and the City Lord of Moon City and the Primal Chaos Overlord, who he had fought with before. That kind of terrifying ability that truly belonged to a top-notch heavenly venerate. Space-time heavenly venerate only snorted coldly in response to Yi Shiwen's words. He exerted the laws of time to the extreme, and his whole body shone with sparkling brilliance. In an instant, it turned into a terrifying attack. Space-time blades appeared, interweaving with countless divine chains of laws. It was like a raging tsunami as it ruthlessly blasted towards Yi Shiwen. In the face of such a terrifying attack, Yi Shiwen stood still. His solemn appearance was like that of an immutable god. Endless light was released from his huge hands. He grabbed at the void with his hands, and the gung metal blade appeared in front of everyone. Then, he finally counterattacked. It collided with space-time heavenly venerate's space-time blades. Boom! It was a terrifying collision. The space-time blades and the gung metal blade collided violently. The space-time blades were indeed terrifying, as they were formed by the power of time and space. However, it was obvious that the gung metal blade was much more terrifying. After all, it had a physical body. Yi Shiwen cut open the space-time blades in an instant. At this time, he truly displayed the strength that he had attained the seventh realm. Although he had attained the seventh realm previously, his cultivation was similar to that of an ordinary seventh realm cultivator. In fact, he was only comparable to a sixth realm heavenly venerate. This was because he had been concealing his strength, and he had not been completely confident. However, it was different now. After a series of battles, he felt that his understanding of the seventh realm had reached a sufficient level. It was enough for him to thoroughly attack. Yi Shiwen's attack instantly blasted in front of space-time heavenly venerate. Although it was a simple martial arts attack, it was the most difficult to resist. Meanwhile, space-time heavenly venerate stretched out his arms, constantly forming hand seals and unleashing secret techniques. Countless time and space nomological laws were boiling, turning into a celestial light. It was like a sword light that pierced straight at Yi Shiwen, as if it was about to pierce through his body. Boom! A terrifying attack broke out. This celestial nomological light directly pierced Yi Shiwen's palm, causing blood to spurt out. However, Yi Shiwen did not care at all. His palm had been pierced, but he still took advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and pressed his palm on space-time heavenly venerate's body. Bang! Although space-time heavenly venerate tried his best to dodge, it was still too late. He was swept by Yi Shiwen's palm power, and a part of his body was sent flying. Time origin. Yi Shiwen frowned slightly as he looked at the injury on his hand. In his current situation, he could naturally see that this celestial light that pierced through Yi Shiwen's palm was none other than the origin of the time law. Space-time heavenly venerate used the power of the origin law in order to injure Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, how could he injure Yi Shiwen, who had the virtuous tyrant golden body? The power of the virtuous tyrant golden body was so tyrannical. Space-time heavenly venerate's figure reappeared in the distance. His body had recovered to its peak, as if the person who was sent flying by Yi Shiwen just now was not him. The magic of the time law was vividly reflected at this time. No matter how much Yi Shiwen injured space-time heavenly venerate, he could not really injure him. However, Yi Shiwen did not mind giving in. In the blink of an eye, the power of the time law origin in Yi Shiwen's hand was cleanly removed, and then his palm was restored to its original state. Space-time heavenly venerate, have you been forced to a dead end? You have been forced to use the origin of the time law. How long can you persist? Yi Shiwen's voice was indifferent. He launched a psychological war, trying to break space-time heavenly venerate's mind. Even you don't have much of the origin of the time law. Yi Shiwen knew that space-time heavenly venerate did not have much of the origin of the time law. This kind of origin law was accumulated little by little after cultivating the time law for countless years. He also had a very good understanding of the time law. Naturally, he understood how difficult it was to use the time law on himself. Even someone as strong as space-time heavenly venerate could not really use this method indefinitely. Space-time heavenly venerate responded to Yi Shiwen's words with a cold snort. He was powerful and proud. How could he easily show weakness? However, he also knew that this was not an easy thing. Reversing time, no matter what the situation was a heaven-defying move. The spiritual power consumed was also shocking. This was also the reason why he did not use the time law at the beginning, because the power was indeed strong, but the consumption was greater. If he only used the space law, it was undoubtedly much lighter. Wu Zun, do you really think I'm not prepared at all? Space-time heavenly venerate said faintly. He grabbed a group of colorful light sources from the void and swallowed it. It's a pity. This is the last one. I have to admit that you are indeed more difficult to deal with than I thought. However, if you think you can exhaust me to death, then you are gravely mistaken. After swallowing this group of colorful light sources, Spacetime Heavenly Venerate's martial power was obviously restored to the peak in an instant. It was still continuously getting stronger. Spacetime Heavenly Venerate's trump card was really turned over. Roar! After a short period of calm, Spacetime Heavenly Venerate suddenly roared and instantly rushed in front of Yishuan. His whole body exuded the colorful light of the time law. It was gorgeous and dazzling. In an instant, he had already rushed in front of Yishuan. Yishuan's domain couldn't even stop him for a little bit. The power of time and space condensed into the purest source in his hands. It turned into the most blazing waterfall and crushed towards Yishuan one after another. Everyone understood that Spacetime Heavenly Venerate was already impatient at this point. In other words, after being overturned by Yishuan several times, he was no longer sure that he could easily defeat Yishuan. Hence, he simply tried his best to kill Yishuan in one fell swoop. Everyone held their breaths because they knew that it might be the last step. The time law that filled the sky had formed a waterfall. It was like a big interwoven net, and it instantly enveloped Yishuan. It blocked all his escape routes and made it impossible for him to escape. At this point, Yishuan really had no way to escape. At this point, he could only fight to determine the outcome. Chapter 36:20. I'm afraid this is really the end. In this state, Spacetime Heavenly Venerate can even pose a threat to a peak Heavenly Venerate. When the power of time has been unleashed to this extent, it has truly reached the acme of perfection, turning the rotten into the miraculous. However, to be able to force Spacetime Heavenly Venerate to this point, the potential of a martial Venerate cannot be underestimated. It's a pity that I still feel that this is not the era of martial Venerates. If he wants to dominate the world, he still lacks some foundation. However, this is already foreseeable. Let's wait and see. The Heavenly Venerates discussed spiritedly. Everyone could see that the outcome of this battle would be decided in one move. At this time, Spacetime Heavenly Venerate was truly at his most terrifying. The power of time source that he crazily displayed could even pose a threat to a peak Heavenly Venerate. That terrifying power was like a ferocious tiger descending the mountain, flying over. Yishuan had already felt the terrifying pressure crushing down on him even before he had rushed over. His clothes were fluttering in the wind. In front of him, there was a network formed by countless power of time, blocking all his escape routes. Is this not allowing me to dodge? That's just right. I have no intention of dodging anyway. Yishuan shouted. He also knew that this was the end. He had to defeat Spacetime Heavenly Venerate in one battle. Above Yishuan's head, the martial Venerate seal flew out and rotated. The radiance of 3,000 martial paths flickered brilliantly, able to compete with Spacetime Heavenly Venerate. Facing Spacetime Heavenly Venerate, Yishuan was not to be outdone. Boom! A power of time source swept down, but it was blocked by the martial Venerate seal. This extremely powerful origin source could not break the defense of the martial Venerate seal. It could only leave shallow marks on the martial Venerate seal. Boundless golden light of virtue scattered in all directions and fell down to form a huge enchantment. This enchantment protected Yishuan inside. That is the golden light of merit. Hiss. Many heavenly venerates couldn't help but gasp when they saw this scene. Even though they had seen many scenes that were beyond their imagination, they still couldn't help but gasp when they saw the golden light of merit radiating from the martial venerate seal. Not only did he refine his golden body of merit, but he even refined his heavenly exalt Tao artifact into a merit Tao artifact. Hiss, how much merit did he get? Many heavenly venerables were dumbfounded. As heavenly venerables for so many years, they naturally knew how difficult it was to obtain merit chi in the Fortune Divine Dynasty. Especially now, with the martial epics development becoming more and more complete, it was increasingly difficult to obtain merit chi. The fact that Yi Shiwen had cultivated the golden body of virtue was already shocking enough. The amount of merit required had made ordinary people desperate. However, Yi Shiwen had revealed a deeper trump card now. Not only had he cultivated the golden body of virtue, but he had also cultivated the revered martial seal into a virtuous Taoist tool. The merit Tao artifact had both offense and defense. It was the best among the many heavenly venerate Tao artifacts. It had become a peak heavenly venerate Tao artifact. It was only slightly inferior to the legendary dominator Tao artifact. Therefore, many people couldn't help but wonder what kind of unknown meritorious service Yi Shiwen had made in order to receive such a shocking amount of meritorious chi. This middle heavenly venerate couldn't help but open his eyes. His pupils shrank slightly. He knew very well how much merit chi was needed to successfully refine the golden body of merit. Even he didn't have any left after refining the golden body of merit. But after Yi Shiwen refined the golden body of merit, he actually had extra merit chi to refine the merit Tao artifact. Amazing, the younger generation will surpass us in time. North Heavenly Venerate couldn't help but say, although he has only been cultivating for more than 10,000 years, he's by no means an ordinary person. When South Heavenly Venerate looked at Yi Shiwen, he couldn't help but feel a little bitter in his mouth. He had been cultivating for so many years, and his position as South Heavenly Venerate was already much longer than Yi Shiwen's cultivation time. However, he was conscientious for the Fortune God dynasty, and he worked hard without complaint. Yet, he couldn't gather enough merit chi to successfully refine the merit Tao artifact. West Heavenly Venerate just looked at Yi Shiwen in the battle arena world. She didn't speak, but her pair of beautiful eyes were rippling. Obviously, she was also shocked by Yi Shiwen's move. The battle had already reached this point, but Yi Shiwen still had a trump card that he hadn't taken out. Yi Shiwen was stronger than they imagined. Thinking of the one-sided victory of space-time Heavenly Venerate, it seemed to be ridiculous now. Boom, boom, boom. The power of time's origin bombarded Yi Shiwen's revered martial seal and left behind marks one after another. It was extremely frightening. Even the enchantment that was hanging down from the revered martial seal was continuously punching holes in it. This was an extremely tragic fight. After stabilizing his own defense, Yi Shiwen finally began to no longer defend passively. He began to attack. The seventh metal ancestral chi began to emerge all over his body, making his whole body look golden, as if he was cast out of gold. Yi Shiwen was like an azure dragon, leaping above the sky of the battle arena world. He crossed the starry sky, withstanding the surging tide of countless time laws, and directly rushed in front of space-time Heavenly Venerate. It's time to end this. Yi Shiwen roared and blasted out a punch. The fist energy pierced through the sky, turned into a long rainbow, and blasted in front of space-time Heavenly Venerate. Space-time Heavenly Venerate's expression became more and more indifferent, and the light on his body became more and more dazzling. In front of him, the time laws emitted colorful light. The fist energy blasted out by Yi Shiwen slowed down at a terrifying speed and gradually weakened at the same time. The speed of the time laws affected Yi Shiwen's attack at the same time. The consumption of this method could be imagined. Everyone could feel that space-time Heavenly Venerate's spiritual power was burning, turning into a brilliant rain of light that scattered in all directions. However, Yishuin did not stop at all. He blasted out another punch. This time, there was not only the light of seventh metal on his fist, but also the light of the time laws. He was also using the time laws. Although it was not comparable to space-time heavenly venerate, it was enough to resist a part of space-time heavenly venerate's time power. In the end, Yishuin's cultivation was too diverse. Because of this, he could use various methods to fight against space-time heavenly venerate. At the same time, he was also under the bombardment of space-time heavenly venerate's power of time. Both sides had fought to the last moment. Whoever collapsed first might be the first to lose. The heavenly venerates and emperors in the reception hall had already held their breaths, for fear of missing the most critical blow. Master, Bian Xiaoya's fists were pale. She opened her heavenly eye. Even so, she could not see the traces of the fight between the two sides clearly. In order to maintain the heavenly eye, the spiritual power in her body was burning, but she was unwilling to stop because she also knew that it was the last moment. On the contrary, Sun Diandian, who was behind her, was much simpler. She had completely given up. This level of battle was far beyond the scope of her understanding. It was just like a primitive man seeing a battle at the level of a planet destroyer. It was just that she did not understand it at all. Each of the laws that were being fought was incomparably profound, and she could not understand them. Suddenly, at this moment, under everyone's attention, space-time heavenly venerate roared angrily. You dare to use me and absorb my power of time to evolve yourself. At this time, everyone discovered that the original power of time that the space-time heavenly venerables had swept down had only left faint traces on the revered martial seal. Then, it had disappeared without a trace. It hadn't been defeated, but had been absorbed by Yishuin's revered martial seal. While absorbing the power of time, the mysterious space in Yishuin's body analyzed frantically. More and more mysteries about time and space were analyzed. Dragon veins were burned one by one to support this analysis. With the gradual analysis, Yishuin's understanding of the power of time was increasing exponentially. In a short time, he had crossed the road that space-time heavenly venerate might have taken hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years to complete. Such a strange change was directly reflected in the battle. Yishuin's resistance to the power of time was getting stronger and stronger. Space-time heavenly venerate's attack on Yishuin was getting weaker and weaker, and it was getting harder and harder to threaten Yishuin. In the end, space-time heavenly venerate finally reacted and suddenly roared again and again. Now you finally discovered it, but unfortunately, it's too late, said Yishuin. At this time, it was easy to attack and defend. Space-time heavenly venerate was naturally very powerful. He had already entered the eighth realm and was considered very powerful among the experts of the eighth realm. He had not yet entered the peak, but he was already so powerful. However, Yishuin was not an ordinary person. He was only in the seventh realm, but he could already compete with the eighth realm. But this alone was not enough to defeat space-time heavenly venerate, so he planned this. And now, the conditions were finally ripe. Watch me, Yishuin roared, and his fist blasted over. It was actually burning, and these burning lights turned into a terrifying power of time, sweeping towards space-time heavenly venerate. Facing this equally terrifying power of time, space-time heavenly venerate finally could not resist. His fist penetrated the surrounding time and space enchantment, and his whole body was instantly blasted away. Puff! Space-time heavenly venerate spat out a mouthful of blood. Yishuin did not pursue further. He just stood in the sky and said faintly, "You lost." Chapter 36:21. You lost. Yishuin did not pursue further, but said faintly. Because both sides were now competing for the position of Eastern Heavenly Master, they did not have to be mortal enemies. Even if Yishuin won, there was no need to further damage Space-Time Heavenly Master. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact it only took a few seconds. Many people did not react at all, and it was already over. Yi Shiwen had already defeated Space-Time Heavenly Master. However, no one would think that Yi Shiwen's victory was a fluke. In just a few seconds, both sides had attacked more than 1,000 times. With Space-Time Heavenly Master's full preparation and attack, it would be disrespectful to Space-Time Heavenly Master if Yi Shiwen still won by a fluke. You won. Space-Time Heavenly Master flew up from the ground, coughed out a mouthful of blood, and said faintly, his defeat was his defeat, and he would not act like some people, throwing a tantrum and acting shamelessly. That would be throwing face to the entire Fortune God dynasty. Although Space-Time Heavenly Master was defeated, it was a glorious defeat. It could be said that the strength he showed was enough to make everyone look at him differently. He was definitely one of the strongest under the peak Heavenly Master. His current reputation and strength were indeed not undeserved. It was a pity that he encountered Yi Shiwen. If he was said to be strong, then Yi Shiwen was even stronger. It could only be said that since there was a Yu, why was there a Liang? Originally, everyone was a little puzzled. How could there be a winner between the two sides after Yi Shiwen's punch? Space-Time Heavenly Master clearly still had the power to fight, but when everyone saw Space-Time Heavenly Master flying in midair, they understood. Everyone clearly saw that Space-Time Heavenly Master was extremely old, as if he had suddenly stepped into old age from his youth. With the nature of Heavenly Masters that surpassed the gods and emperors, this was simply impossible. Even the Heavenly Way could not control them. Then there was only one possibility. He was affected by the law of time, which resulted in such a terrifying situation. However, Space-Time Heavenly Master himself was an expert in this aspect, but he was still affected by the power of time. This was the most shocking thing to everyone. Obviously, there was no one else but Yi Shiwen who could do this. Seeing this, everyone already understood why just one punch was enough to determine the winner between the two. It was because Space-Time Heavenly Master was affected by Yi Shiwen's power of time in his best domain. This meant that when he used the power of time to attack Yi Shiwen again, the effect would be reduced to an unbearable level. It might not even have half of the original power on Yi Shiwen. It was enough to deal with an ordinary Celestial Master, and even enough to deal with an 8th Realm Celestial Master. However, Yi Shiwen was different. He, who had cultivated the golden body of merit, was in an invincible position. It was extremely difficult to defeat him without absolute strength like the primal chaos overlord. In this case, although Space-Time Tianzuan had not been defeated yet, he had already been defeated. It was just that Yi Shiwen hadn't knocked him down to the mortal world yet. Defeated. I didn't expect Space-Time Heavenly Venerate to be defeated in his area of expertise. This is simply ironic. Heavenly Venerate North pursed his lips and finally spoke. Space-Time Tianzuan wouldn't have admitted defeat so easily if Yi Shiwen had an advantage in other domains. However, he had been affected in the domain where he had thought that it would be difficult for him to meet his match. Although Yi Shiwen's current understanding of space-time was still inferior to space-time Heavenly Venerable, it had obviously risen to the point where it could threaten him. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of years space-time Heavenly Venerable had spent to reach this step. However, Yi Shiwen had done it in just a few breaths. This was the most shocking part. It was also the fundamental reason why space-time Heavenly Venerable had finally admitted defeat. The great Heavenly Venerables glanced at each other and understood the horror in each other's hearts. They might have been somewhat puzzled at first. How could Yi Shiwen reach such a level in such a short period of time? He was even about to catch up with them. However, they could see many things in this short exchange. In this short exchange of blows, Yi Shiwen's comprehension ability had left them shocked. Perhaps this was the fundamental reason why he was so amazing. Space-time Heavenly Venerable quickly expelled the influence of the power of time that Yi Shiwen left on him. Although he had failed at this time, his combat power was still at its peak. He was not embarrassed. However, he also understood that there was no point in continuing to fight. It was useless except for both sides being injured. However, his eyes were filled with horror. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he probably wouldn't have imagined that Yi Shiwen actually had this ability. In just a few breaths, Yi Shiwen had completed the path that he had walked for hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years. His heart was full of unwillingness. It was not only because his domain that he was best that was threatened. More importantly, in order to obtain the position of Eastern Heavenly Venerable, he had planned for countless years, but ultimately failed. Yi Shiwen had an indifferent look on his face. However, he was well aware in his heart that he had comprehended a few breaths' worth of time. It might seem shocking, but only he knew that he had burned all of his wealth in just a few breaths' worth of time. He had become a pauper once again. However, in terms of the effect, he was still very satisfied. Without this battle, he didn't know how many years it would take for him to comprehend to this point. Although the mysterious space was powerful, it was not omnipotent. In his hand, the martial honor seal was spinning. In just a few breaths of battle, space-time Heavenly Venerable had left countless marks on it. The marks were modeled with the power of time. Even the martial honor seal that he had refined with the chi of merit was affected to this extent. It could be seen how powerful space-time Heavenly Venerable's power of time was. If it were an ordinary Heavenly Venerable Taoist tool, it would not be able to withstand it all and would soon collapse. There were many reasons why he could win this time. There were also many years of accumulation. However, a victory was a victory, and a defeat was a defeat. The winner was king, and the loser was a bandit. This was the cruel reality. I have lost. See you later. I will take my leave first. Space-time Heavenly Venerable cupped his hands in obeisance. He was still a gentleman. However, it was impossible for him to stay and bear the strange gazes of others. He knew that he had also shown terrifying strength in the battle just now. It was impossible for anyone to look down on him. However, a defeat was a defeat. Although it was a glorious defeat, it was still a defeat. This was simply a great shame for him. He had prepared for so long, but he had still been counterattacked by a junior. How could he lose face after being defeated? After saying that, space-time Heavenly Venerable's figure swayed slightly and disappeared from everyone's sight. It was only after space-time Heavenly Venerable left that everyone finally realized that this battle was over. The curtains had been drawn and the dust had settled. How is this possible? Among these people, the ones who couldn't accept this the most were naturally the troops brought by time-space Heavenly Venerate. They had originally come with the mentality of a victor. Everyone felt that time-space Heavenly Venerate had a greater chance of winning. Even they felt that way. It could even be said that, in their opinion, time-space Heavenly Venerate would definitely win and become the new Eastern Heavenly Venerate. However, the reality slapped them hard in the face. In any case, they had never thought that space-time Heavenly Venerable would lose. However, when this fact suddenly appeared in front of them, they still felt completely unacceptable. In contrast, the loyal followers of the human race and the 13 prefectures that Yi Shiwen had brought along instantly cheered. Yi Shiwen had won. He had broken everyone's pessimism and ascended to the top position. He had become the supreme celestial lord of the entire eastern region. The human race could also rise along with Yi Shiwen. The status of the super races would also be consolidated. Especially this time, those who came were Yi Shiwen's hardcore confidants and troops. They were also Yi Shiwen's most hardcore supporters. At this time, they couldn't help but cheer, regardless of the Emperor Lords and Heavenly Venerables present. If it was under normal circumstances, such impoliteness would probably lead to a scolding. However, at this time, those high and mighty Emperor Lords and Heavenly Venerables were a little dumbfounded, still immersed in endless shock. Although they understood why space-time Heavenly Venerable was defeated, this sudden outcome that was completely different from what most of them had expected still shocked them indescribably. Space-time Heavenly Venerable was an existence with unimaginable prestige in the entire Fortune God dynasty. He was second only to the great Heavenly Venerables. It could even be said that although the Heavenly Tao Sect Master and Xinyuan Heavenly Venerable were powerful existences who were stronger than space-time Heavenly Venerable, their prestige was far inferior to space-time Heavenly Venerable. However, such a powerful, outstanding, and prestigious space-time heavenly venerable was defeated just like that. What kind of situation was this? Many people even had a ridiculous feeling that they had opened it in the wrong way. This kind of illusion shouldn't have appeared in the minds of emperor lords and heavenly venerables. But it still happened. One could imagine how shocking this matter was to them. However, no matter how shocked they were, they also understood that this matter couldn't be changed. The Eastern Territory Eastern heavenly venerable position had already been decided. It was beyond everyone's expectations, but it was also within everyone's expectations. After all, no matter who won and who lost, there were only two possibilities. It was just that one possibility was more likely, while the other was less likely. Yi Shiwen retracted his mystique, took a step out, left the battle arena, and returned to the guest palace. At this time, he heard the congratulations of many experts. Congratulations, Wu Zun. Congratulations, congratulations. Congratulations, Wu Zun, for becoming extraordinary from now on and becoming the ruler of the Eastern Territory. Some were even more direct. Congratulations, Eastern Heavenly Venerable, on his promotion. Chapter 36:22. The Eastern region's undecided Eastern Heavenly Venerate position finally came to an end today. Yi Shiwen, a candidate that not many people were optimistic about, succeeded in becoming the Eastern Heavenly Venerate. In the Eastern region alone, Yi Shiwen's prestige was high. Compared to the original Eastern Heavenly Venerate, the current Middle Heavenly Venerate was not much different. He saved the entire Eastern region, defeated the Stormy Sea Region coalition, and killed several great heavenly venerates. Any one of these things would cast an immortal legend. Moreover, with so many things gathered together, it was conceivable how high Yi Shiwen's prestige in the Eastern region was now. In terms of prestige alone, it was not surprising that Yi Shiwen reached the top. The only thing that made everyone suspicious was that his opponent was Spacetime Heavenly Venerate, who was more prestigious and more powerful than him. Spacetime Heavenly Venerate had been cultivating for longer than all of Yi Shiwen's cultivation years combined. Among the Heavenly Venerates, although Spacetime Heavenly Venerate was considered a junior, it also depended on who he was compared to. Compared to Yi Shiwen, Spacetime Heavenly Venerate was considered a veteran Heavenly Venerate. However, now he was defeated by Yi Shiwen, and it was in the field that he was most proficient in. There was no need to spread this news because the vast majority of Fortune God dynasties, Heavenly Venerates, and Emperors were present. Spreading it to them was no different from spreading it to the entire Fortune God dynasty. But no matter how unbelievable they were, they also understood one thing. From now on, the Eastern region had opened a new chapter, entered a new era, and ushered in a new master. It could even be said that the entire Fortune God dynasty would enter a new era because of Yi Shiwen's ascension to the top. A brand new era led by Yi Shiwen. And with the Eastern Heavenly Venerate position, Yi Shiwen would also become one of the masters of the entire Fortune God dynasty. At least from a lower position, he would be able to be on an equal footing with several great Heavenly Venerates. In the beginning, everyone did not take Yi Shiwen, a junior, seriously. But now their thoughts had completely changed. Regardless of whether they originally had a conflict with Yi Shiwen, they had to eliminate the original hostility as much as possible at this time, especially the Celestial Masters in the Eastern region. From now on, Yi Shiwen would be their immediate superior. They couldn't avoid Yi Shiwen no matter what happened in the Eastern region. They had to discuss it with him. At this time, the Middle Holy Master stood up from his throne, looked at the crowd, and said, "Everyone has already seen the outcome of the battle between Spacetime Holy Master and Wu Zun. I won't say anything else. The position of Eastern Territory's Eastern Holy Master has fallen to Wu Zun. From now on, Wu Zun is the new Eastern Holy Master. I can finally breathe a sigh of relief." Everyone said at the same time, "Congratulations on your promotion, Eastern Lord." Yi Shiwen smiled as he looked at everyone. Then, he took a step forward and sat on the empty seat that belonged to the Eastern Venerable. From today onwards, He would be one of the supreme rulers of the Fortune divine dynasty. Looking at the celestial masters and emperors below, Yi Shiwen's heart was filled with emotion. From the beginning, when he wanted to become the Eastern Holy Master, he didn't know how many difficulties he had gone through. Finally, he came here and became the Eastern Holy Master. However, he knew that this was just the beginning. His current status was only comparable to the other 4 celestial masters and the city lords of the 10 divine cities. In terms of strength and influence, could he really be compared with them? Obviously, among these people, Yi Shiwen was the weakest. He had to work harder to become the world's true supreme. As the middle holy master said, he grabbed the void with his big hand and grabbed a piece of golden paper. On it was written the sacrificial text about Yi Shiwen's promotion. It was a sacrifice to the heavens and a notification to the heavens. Even the ascension of an emperor in the mortal world had to be reported to the heavens. Not to mention an incomparably noble position like the Eastern Holy Master of the Fortune divine dynasty. Yi Shiwen took the sacrificial text from the middle holy master's hand. Every word represented the Tao text of the Great Way. In general, it was written that Yi Shiwen accepted the fate of the heavens and was loved and respected by the people of the Eastern region. Today, he ascended to the position of the Eastern Holy Master. On behalf of the heavens and herdsmen, he will rule the trillions of lives in the Eastern region. In general, it was to inform the heavens of the will of the people. If the heavens did not refute, it was decided. At the same time, he would uphold the will of the heavens and the will of the people to ascend to the position of the Eastern Holy Master. After Yi Shiwen finished reading the sacrificial text in cadence, the golden sacrificial text began to spontaneously combusted and fluttered in the blue sky. But after a moment, waves of celestial music began to play between heaven and earth. Flowers of the Great Way directly descended between heaven and earth. Every flower of the Great Way contained the Great Way. It was as if there were fairies dancing in the sky to the music. Many visions were manifested. Moreover, these visions were getting bigger and bigger. It almost enveloped the entire Eastern region. All the creatures in the Eastern region felt the changes in this world. It was as if the world had suddenly become gentle. Some sick people's conditions also improved. Those who were on the verge of death also survived the calamity of death. 2 people who were originally at loggerheads also put down their grudges and joined hands. All kinds of things happened at the same time in the land of the Eastern region. This was the recognition of heaven for Yi Shiwen's ascension to the position of the Eastern Holy Master. That was why the visions from heaven would benefit the trillions of lives in the entire Eastern region. All the emperors and holy masters looked calm. This was just a formality. Unless Yi Shiwen did something that angered the heavens and people, he might fail. Otherwise, it would not be difficult for Yi Shiwen, who carried the hopes of trillions of lives in the Eastern region, to ascend to the position. They were busy absorbing the flower of heavenly way that had descended from the heavenly way. This was a reward from the heavens. It was a reward for the people who had come to watch the ceremony. Therefore, Yi Shiwen had chosen to bring Bian Xiaoye and the others here. After all, this ceremony was equivalent to many years of painstaking cultivation. After absorbing several flowers of the Great Way, Bian Xiaoye easily stepped into the 4th stage of the Emperor realm. There was not the slightest hindrance in the realm, and there was no instability. In addition to her, son Dian, who was behind her, also received great benefits. Although it was only one flower of the Great Way, it allowed her cultivation to increase rapidly, and she directly entered the immortal realm. Initially, there would be a heaven and earth disaster when one broke through to the next level. However, since she had absorbed the Tao flower, she had obtained a recognition of the heavenly Tao. She did not have to face the heaven and earth disaster, and she could break through to immortal level directly. Moreover, she had only absorbed a small part of the flowers of the Great Way. When she absorbed the rest of the flowers of the Great Way, it was conceivable that her cultivation would also usher in an explosive and crazy development. Next to her, Sun Ziwan's cultivation had also increased a lot. It was just one flower of the Great Way, but it directly allowed him, a martial artist who had just entered the Boundary Emperor realm, to directly enter the peak of the Boundary Emperor realm. Moreover, his realm was incomparably stable, and there would not be any instability. In addition to them, the other emperors and celestial venerables also received their own benefits. It was just that their cultivation was already very profound, and they were not Yi Shiwen's direct subordinates, so naturally, their performance was not as exaggerated. However, their basic skills had also increased a lot out of nowhere. This was Heaven's way helping their cultivation. Of course, among these people, Yi Shiwen had gained the most. Most of the flowers of the Great Way rushed towards him. Every flower of the Great Way contained a comprehension of the Great Way. At the same time, endless golden light descended from the sky. That was the Qi of merit. Yi Shiwen was a herdsman in the East Territory, so naturally, he had great merit. However, it could not be compared to the destruction of an era. The destruction of an era was the destruction of the Heaven's Way. No matter how great the merit was, it could not be compared to this. The great merit that the West Celestial Venerables, the North Celestial Venerables, and the South Celestial Venerables had also come from this. Yi Shiwen did not immediately absorb the flowers of the Great Way and the Qi of merit. He had other uses for them. He directly formed a large hand and collected the flowers of the Great Way and the Qi of merit. He could feel that this was Heaven's Way's recognition of him. He could even feel that in the Fortune God dynasty, especially in the East Territory, his strength had suddenly increased a lot. In fact, within this range, he could mobilize the power of the entire world to fight. His strength had increased by more than a little. In front of him, the laws of the world began to converge. Divine splendor fell like rain, condensing into a square seal with the words East Celestial Venerables and Herdsmen on behalf of the heavens. This was the East Celestial Venerable seal. As long as it was within the East Territory, the power that the East Celestial Venerable seal could exert was even greater than the Martial Venerable seal in Yi Shiwen's hand. This was the convergence of the power of the trillions of lives in the entire East Territory. It was also the convergence of the power of heaven and earth. It was also the key to him being able to mobilize the power of heaven and earth in the East Territory. As long as he could refine this East Celestial Venerable seal, he would be practically invincible in the East Territory. In simpler terms, he originally needed to use the supreme ancestral symbol to defeat a peak heavenly venerables like the primal chaos overlord's incarnation. But now, he didn't need to use the supreme ancestral symbol. As long as he was within the East Territory, he could mobilize the power of heaven and earth with the East Celestial Venerable seal and defeat a peak heavenly venerables. This was based on Yi Shiwen's current cultivation. If Yi Shiwen became more powerful, the power of the East Celestial Venerables would also increase. At this time, Yi Shiwen finally understood why the original 5 great heavenly venerables were unable to resist the rule of the Fortune God dynasty. The number of peak heavenly venerables among the people was obviously more than double that of the 5 great heavenly venerables. Just the East Celestial Venerable seal alone could allow him to fight against 2 peak heavenly venerables at the same time without being defeated. His strength had increased by more than a little. This was also the reason why so many people were willing to join the Fortune God dynasty. Joining the Fortune God dynasty represented the Heaven's Way. It was completely different from the original nature. In addition to the East Celestial Venerable seal, the other great heavenly venerables should also have their own seals to suppress all strong enemies. Chapter 36:23. This represented the supreme power of the entire Eastern Territory. In addition to Yi Shiwen, everyone else naturally understood what this seal represented. This meant that in the Eastern Territory, Yi Shiwen had truly become the supreme. Even those peak heavenly masters could not compete with Yi Shiwen. This was the majesty of the great masters. Yi Shiwen belonged to the younger generation among the great masters. However, an ordinary celestial master couldn't compare with him. With the return of the Eastern Heavenly Venerate, Yi Shiwen's status in the Eastern Territory was absolute. Yi Shiwen officially succeeded the position of Eastern Heavenly Venerate and entered the Eastern Heavenly Venerate Mansion. With his order, the Eastern Heavenly Venerate Mansion began to hold all kinds of celebrations. The news of Yi Shiwen succeeding the position of Eastern Heavenly Venerate spread throughout the Eastern Territory and even the Fortune God Dynasty. As one of the Fortune Divine Dynasty's great masters, the Eastern Heavenly Venerate ruled over the vast Eastern region. Needless to say, the Eastern Heavenly Venerate's status was very important. Many experts from various regions were already waiting outside the Eastern Heavenly Venerate Manor for news. After Yi Shiwen had successfully defeated Spacetime Heavenly Master, they understood that this result couldn't be changed. Although they were extremely shocked in their hearts and didn't understand why Wu Zun had won instead of Spacetime Heavenly Master, who was more favored by everyone, they quickly brought back all kinds of news to the various regions. Subsequently, the special envoys of the Eastern Heavenly Venerate Mansion also set off to various territories to announce the news of Yi Shiwen succeeding the position of Eastern Heavenly Venerate to the world. The Fortune God Dynasty was too vast. If it was not artificially announced, even if the leaders of the various forces were very clear about it, it would take a long time for the news to spread throughout the Fortune God Dynasty. Even in the Eastern Territory, it would take a long time for the name of Eastern Heavenly Venerate to spread throughout the Fortune God Dynasty. Overnight, the news of Yi Shiwen succeeding the position of Eastern Heavenly Venerate spread throughout the Fortune God Dynasty. For a time, the entire Fortune God Dynasty was in an uproar. Before the election began, except for some die-hard supporters of Yi Shiwen in the Eastern Territory, almost everyone was looking at Spacetime Heavenly Venerate. Compared to Yi Shiwen, Spacetime Heavenly Venerate had too many advantages. That advantage was not something that Yi Shiwen could reverse. However, when the truth came out, everyone felt like they had been slapped hard in the face. This slap made them see stars. How is this possible? The Spacetime Heavenly Lord has dominated the world for so many years. How could he be overthrown by a martial venerable? What happened? Could there have been an accident? How did Wu Zun do it? Many people doubted whether Yi Shiwen was lucky or had used some tricks. However, only those emperors and celestial masters who had personally witnessed the scene would understand that Yi Shiwen had not won by luck. He had indeed defeated Spacetime Celestial Master with absolute strength. He had even defeated Spacetime Empyrean at a lower cultivation level. No one had anything to say about such a victory, because there was nothing they could say. Many people were asking in their hearts, how could this be? How could this be? However, it didn't matter whether they liked it or not. It was an unchangeable fact that Yi Shiwen had become the Eastern Celestial Lord. And this wind blew directly to the outer domain, causing an uproar in the outer domain. As neighbors of the Fortune God Dynasty, and there had been many years of conflict between them, the outer domain would only pay more attention to the replacement of the heavenly masters in the Fortune God Dynasty than the Fortune God Dynasty itself. This was because every supremacy had a different personality, which also meant that their actions would be different. It was necessary to prepare as soon as possible. In particular, the Tempest Sea region, which was directly adjacent to the Eastern Domain, was paying close attention to the selection. When the news spread to the Tempest Sea region, all the emperors and heavenly masters of the outer domain looked at each other in dismay. They were a little dumbfounded. Like the masses of the Fortune God Dynasty, they also felt that although Yi Shiwen was strong, it was not his era. Yi Shiwen had defeated the Tempest Sea region's army and killed many of their heavenly masters, causing the entire Tempest Sea region to suffer heavy losses. But that was only under special circumstances, especially when their peak heavenly masters were held up. If not for that, Yi Shiwen would really be dead. Moreover, the eruption of such a trump card obviously could not last long, and one had to pay an extremely heavy price. Yi Shiwen almost couldn't hold on in the end was proof of that. Therefore, in their opinion, the possibility of Spacetime Heavenly Master winning in the end was very high. During the many years when Spacetime Heavenly Master ruled the Central Domain, he had also rushed to the other domains many times. Therefore, the experts of the Tempest Sea region were no strangers to space-time Heavenly Master. They knew that he was a very difficult opponent to deal with. But they didn't expect that Yi Shiwen would win in the end. This made them dumbfounded. When they received the news, they couldn't believe it. What kind of ability did Yi Shiwen have to defeat space-time Heavenly Master? Could it be that the trump card that he had displayed before had erupted? They couldn't believe it, but regardless of whether they were willing to believe it or not, it had already become a fact. As the supreme ruler of the Eastern Domain, his character and way of doing things were inevitably closely related to the Tempest Sea region. In particular, this time, the foreign domain was extremely daring. They had actually launched a surprise attack on the Fortune God dynasty and plundered countless wealth of the Fortune God dynasty, severely injuring the Fortune God dynasty. With the Fortune God dynasty's way of doing things, it was hard to say whether or not they would retaliate. Although there was also news from the epic battlefield that the Fortune God dynasty had suffered heavy losses in the epic battlefield, coupled with the previous attack from the foreign domain, it could be said that the Fortune God dynasty had suffered heavy losses. But even if there was only a small possibility, they had to guard against it. The news was still spreading. Everywhere it reached, it inevitably set off an uproar. Many people didn't think that Yi Shiwen would eventually ascend to the position of the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master, especially the common tyrants under the rule of the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master. At this time, they didn't know what to think. They watched helplessly as the human race, which was originally inferior to them, soared to the sky and became the race that dominated the Eastern Domain. As long as Yi Shiwen was the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master, no one could shake the position of the human race. The celebration of Yi Shiwen's ascension to the position of Eastern Domain Heavenly Master lasted for 10 days and 10 nights. All kinds of banquets were held, toasts were exchanged, and toasts were exchanged. However, no matter how long the celebration was, it still had a time limit. 10 days and 10 nights sounded long, but in fact, it passed very quickly. The Holy Masters and Emperors left one after another and returned to their respective posts. This time, Yi Shiwen's strong counterattack and defeat of space-time Heavenly Master brought shock to them. The subsequent series of changes that followed were not something that could be digested in a short time. They needed time to calm down. In particular, many Holy Masters were very optimistic about space-time Heavenly Master from the beginning. They also bet their treasures on him and supported him a lot. However, now that Yi Shiwen had become the new Eastern Domain Heavenly Master, they had to be careful. If Yi Shiwen wanted to settle the score after the fall, then things would be troublesome. If the position of the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master wanted to make things difficult for them, naturally there would be a way. This grand ceremony could be said to be a happy occasion for some people and a sad occasion for some people. Those who stood on Yi Shiwen's side naturally cheered heartily. However, the emperors and holy masters who stood on the opposite side of Yi Shiwen knew how the dishes and wine tasted. Yi Shiwen didn't know what these emperors and holy masters were thinking, but it didn't mean that he couldn't guess. It was nothing more than more people were optimistic about space-time Heavenly Master, so they went to make friends in advance. On the other hand, not many people were optimistic about Yi Shiwen. Among the trillions of creatures in the entire Eastern region, Yi Shiwen's prestige was naturally very high. However, among these celestial masters and emperors, Yi Shiwen's prestige was obviously not enough. Otherwise, they would not have chosen to support space-time Celestial Master. These could not be rushed in a short time. It needed to be managed slowly. After the ceremony ended, the great Holy Masters also left. Only the Middle Holy Master stayed because the Middle Holy Master was originally the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master. Now that he was promoted to the Middle Holy Master, there was naturally a lot of work to be handed over. It should be said that it was handed over to Bian Xiaoya and other loyal subordinates of Yi Shiwen. To unify the entire vast and boundless land of the Eastern region, it was still beyond the power of the human clan, even with Yi Shiwen's suppression. Fortunately, the previous Eastern Domain Heavenly Masters had their own subordinates. The current Middle Holy Master was not the first Eastern Domain Heavenly Master, and naturally would not be the last Eastern Domain Heavenly Master. It was simply impossible for the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master to unify it alone. There were always some powerful clans and great sects that were loyal to the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master for generations. It should be said that they were loyal to whoever was the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master. They were not loyal to anyone, but they were loyal to the person sitting in that position. They could be trusted. They were also the courtiers of the Eastern region. Together with the Heavenly Taoism, the Silver Moon Clan, and other powerful sects and clans, they formed the ruling class of the entire Eastern region. They were also a sharp blade in the hands of the previous Eastern Domain Heavenly Masters. They could directly mobilize the power that belonged to the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master. After all, the tyrants among the people were not necessarily obedient, and they were not easy to control. It was impossible without the assistance of these people. Although the human clan was loyal and devoted, their strength was not worth mentioning compared to the entire Eastern region. They could only occupy the most core position, and it was impossible to manage everything. This was also the strategy of the previous Eastern Domain Heavenly Masters. As long as they occupied the righteous title of the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master, no one dared to disobey their orders. Moreover, the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master Mansion was backed by the Fortune God Dynasty. Going against the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master Mansion was going against the Fortune God Dynasty, and the consequences would be much more serious. At this point, although it could not be said that the entire Eastern region was like the back of his hand, it was generally under the firm control of the Eastern Domain Heavenly Master. Chapter 36-24. None of the previous Eastern Venerables wanted to control everything in their hands. Firstly, it was unrealistic. Secondly, it was too much of a waste of time. Not many of them wanted to become Eastern Venerables because they had a strong desire for power. Eastern Venerables were just stepping stones for them to advance further in their cultivation. To put it bluntly, this was an aid to cultivation, not the main goal. During the handover period, the Middle Venerables would also stay in the Eastern Venerables Mansion and let their subordinates handle the handover with the human clan. Although many people in the Eastern Venerables Mansion were loyal to the Eastern Venerables for generations and did not need to be replaced, some key points must be controlled by the human clan, including the core of the defensive formation, nodes, vaults, boundaries, and so on. The most critical places must be controlled by the trusted subordinates of the Eastern Venerables. After Yishuan began to take over the work of the Eastern Venerables, he discovered that a lot of things and work had accumulated during this period of time. As the Eastern Venerables, ordinary things naturally did not need to be handled by him. However, now that the Eastern region had experienced the invasion of the Stormy Sea region, there was a lot of mess left that needed him to solve and mediate. This was especially true for places that had once been ravaged by the Stormy Sea region. Those tribes that had been wiped out and the remnants of the great sects came to the Eastern Empyrean Manor to weep and beg for a place to stay. There were also those tribes that had surrendered to the Stormy Sea region. And in the vast expanses of empty land that these people had vacated, there were many pairs of eyes staring at them covetously. Those veteran Empyreans attacked one after another, even fighting each other in order to seize territory. For the land of a large province, they could fight to the death. The Eastern region, which had just retreated from the Stormy Sea region, was filled with smoke and undercurrents. Some of the veteran Celestial Venerables who had snatched territories reported to the Eastern Venerables Mansion and asked for them to recognize their sovereignty over the land. The veteran Celestial Venerables who had not snatched territories asked for the Eastern Venerables Mansion to make decisions for them. These things happened one after another, wave after wave. It was just that the Middle Heavenly Venerate had been in charge of the Central region, and the Eastern Heavenly Venerate hadn't returned yet. So this matter had been suppressed first. However, all of these things had suddenly broken out, and Yishuan had to deal with it. Compared to these matters, the rest of the matters were just trivial matters. Annihilating the rebellious tribes and sects, pacifying and settling the remnants of the tribes and sects that had fought to the death for the Fortune Divine Dynasty. All of these matters were handed over to Bianxia, heaven-shaking Thunder Emperor, and the others to handle. In particular, Bian Xiaoyu was the person whom he had focused on training. Although it was somewhat difficult for him to deal with these matters with his strength, Bian Xiaoyu was carrying Yi Shiwen's name. Who would dare to not give him face? That would be equivalent to not giving Yi Shiwen face. That would simply be courting death. This was an excellent training opportunity for him, and the sky-shaking Thunder Emperor was there to support her. If there was something that even she couldn't handle, the sky-shaking Thunder Emperor would personally handle it. For example, some rebellious tribes and sects had powerful emperor lords overseeing them. These were things that Bian Xiaoya couldn't handle in a short time, so the sky-shaking Thunder Emperor would personally lead a team to annihilate them. In addition, there were many courtiers in the Eastern Venerables Mansion who were directly under the command of the Eastern Venerables. They had been loyal to the Eastern Venerables for countless years, and it was deeply ingrained in their blood. As long as the Eastern Venerables gave the order, they would do their best. Now, in order to leave a good impression in front of the new Eastern Venerables, these people began to work hard and listen to Bian Xiaoya's orders. There were even heavenly venerables among them. When necessary, they would personally take action to annihilate the rebellious tribes. Therefore, it wasn't that difficult. The main thing was that there were many and complicated things, so Yi Shiwen couldn't be bothered to solve them. Just the matters of those veteran heavenly venerables were enough to give him a headache. The memorials of those veteran heavenly venerables were more polite than the previous one. However, the requests in the memorials were more difficult than the previous one. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but feel annoyed. These old guys were usually more cunning than the previous one. They often didn't listen to the Eastern Venerables Mansion's requests. At this time, they were acting as if they had been loyal to the Eastern Venerables Mansion for many years. In the end, it was because they wanted to obtain the approval of the Eastern Venerables Mansion. The Eastern Venerables Mansion represented the Fortune God Dynasty. Only by obtaining the approval of the Fortune God Dynasty could they occupy the territories that they had seized for a long time. Otherwise, as long as the Fortune God Dynasty gave the order, they would be attacked from all sides. They could snatch other people's territories, and, conversely, others could also snatch their territories. It wasn't difficult at all. The initiator would never have a successor. Just like how the human race had previously seized the heaven-devouring demon tribes' provinces, they also needed the approval of the Eastern Venerables Mansion. It was precisely because of this that Yi Shiwen made the decision to side with the Eastern Venerables Mansion. Otherwise, if he didn't obtain the approval of the Eastern Venerables Mansion, the human race could be said to be besieged on all sides. There was a possibility that the human race could be exterminated at any time. Even if he had entered the Heavenly Venerables realm, he wouldn't be able to stop the Heavenly Venerables of the other races. It was precisely because they had a favor to ask of him that these arrogant old fellows all lowered their heads and spoke humbly to him. However, these veteran Heavenly Venerables were different from ordinary Emperor Lords. He couldn't deal with them casually. It wasn't until he became the Eastern Venerables that Yi Shiwen discovered that the position of the Eastern Venerables wasn't that easy. Without absolute strength and prestige, it was difficult to carry out many things. If he hadn't had the amazing battle record of defeating the Stormy Sea region army by himself, his prestige might not have been as high as it was now. In particular, many veteran Heavenly Venerables simply looked down on Yi Shiwen's strength. Even with the Eastern Venerable seal, Yi Shiwen possessed absolute combat power. However, his true realm was only the 7th realm. Among these old guys, there were many experts in the 7th realm, 8th realm, and even 9th realm. Many of these veteran Heavenly Venerates had already been running amok during the reign of the previous Eastern Heavenly Venerate and the Eastern Heavenly Venerate before that. Making them obediently listen to the words of a junior wasn't something that could be done with ordinary means. This made Yi Shiwen ponder over this painful experience. He had to find a way to improve his strength, especially to the 8th realm. Once he reached the 8th realm, he would even dare to challenge the 9th realm Heavenly Venerables. At that time, even without the Eastern Venerable seal, no one would dare to underestimate him. In the end, in this world, only strength could determine everything. And these heavenly venerables, whether it was joining the Fortune Divine Dynasty or going their own way or competing for territories, in the end, it was all for the sake of strengthening themselves. While Yishuin was having a headache over these matters, the middle heavenly venerables unexpectedly came to visit. There was a half-bit wall in the depths of the Eastern Venerable's mansion. It was a space that Yishuin had opened up himself. There were birds and flowers everywhere, and forests crisscrossed. On a mountainside, two figures were sitting cross-legged in midair. Two cloud beds were supporting them. At this time, there was no one else. Only Sun Dian was accompanying them. She would pour tea for them from time to time. This was also Yi Shiwen's intention to nurture her. She also knew the importance of this matter. Although her cultivation had improved tremendously during this period of time, and she had directly advanced to the deity realm, she was no different from an ant compared to the two masters of the Fortune God dynasty, and even the entire martial arts era. It seems that you have been quite busy during this period of time. The middle heavenly venerables looked at Yi Shiwen and couldn't help but smile. The relationship between the two was very close, and they had fought side by side many times. Naturally, there was no need for pleasantries. He couldn't help but look at Yi Shiwen with astonishment. Although Yi Shiwen was recommended by him, he didn't have a better candidate in his pocket at that time. He mainly recommended Heavenly Venerable's Silver Moon, and Yi Shiwen was more like a casual recommendation. But no one expected that under the strength of space-time Heavenly Venerables, everyone else had lost the qualifications to run for the position. Instead, Yi Shiwen counterattacked and successfully defeated space-time Heavenly Venerables to become the Eastern Venerables. This was something that he hadn't expected at the beginning. Yi Shiwen frowned slightly. He picked up the teacup, took a sip of the immortal tea, and said, "Things are much more complicated than I thought, and also much more troublesome." The middle Heavenly Venerables couldn't help but shake his head and laugh when he saw Yi Shiwen's frown. He remembered that he was also very busy during this period of time. He was going to take over as the middle Heavenly Venerables, and the things he had to do were no less than Yi Shiwen's. Especially among the major regions, the central region was obviously the strongest. It could faintly suppress the other regions, and the tyrants in the central region were far more than the tyrants in the eastern region. Although he had been the Eastern Venerables for many years and entered the central region with supreme merits, things couldn't really be smooth sailing. There were also many people who didn't buy into his account. Although they didn't dare to say anything on the surface, there were many who resisted in private. This situation was something that the supreme venerables of each region had to face. Unless the Fate Creation Heaven Lord was resurrected, who else could have the prestige to make the tyrants of each region obediently bow their heads? The Eastern region is fine. You have recently made great contributions to the Eastern region, so they don't dare to refute you on the surface," said the middle Heavenly Venerables. "Besides, do you think that those old guys are more domineering now? Let me tell you, when I first inherited the position, they were 10 times more domineering than they are now. Now that they have been tortured by the fate creation path for many years, they have restrained themselves a lot." Yi Shiwen looked at the middle Heavenly Venerables. He could roughly imagine how domineering those old guys were in the past. It was the era when the Fate Creation Heaven Lord had just disappeared, and the entire Fortune God dynasty was at its strongest. There were many talents and heroes gathered. They fought against the foreign regions internally and the ancient era externally. They were insufferably arrogant. It was really difficult to take over as the Eastern Venerables at that time. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.